Markets are collapsing again. Turns out cutting our largest trading partner didn't instill too much confidence. What will happen next? ICE makes criticizing Israel an illegal idea. Get in now to learn about the art of the deal. I always wonder what it is when people are like, I actually agree with Hassan wholeheartedly. I just fucking can't stand him. I wonder what it is. Like, what have I done that just like pissed you off? Is it because you think I'm not sufficiently leftist enough, or is that what it is? Or do you think it's because, is it because of one thing that I said that you don't agree with? You know what I mean? And then that like broke you. What kind of leftist is an annoying leftist to you? Come on. The ones I yell at every day. The ones that are like, you LARP as a Zoomer. I don't. I'm 33. I'm literally, look at me. I have white beard hairs. There is never a moment where I've LARPed as a Zoomer. That's just a thing people say. Like, what is the, I have a white beard, man. If you think I'm behaving like a Zoomer, that's just kind of on you. There's no, I say how old I am pretty much every day. I also talk routinely about how I don't understand a lot of aspects of Zoomer culture. I don't agree with you on copyright IP with regards to music, but it's so funny to imagine being the kind of person who takes that personally and hates you over. I love your commentary and you're very good at explaining stuff, but I absolutely hate how hot you are. Okay. Yeah, we need, my brother said, why should I listen to an angry, yelling Turkish guy? He might agree. That's what it is. Read lookism. What? Lookism? Ew. Oh, come on. The person I know who feels that way, doesn't like the bro vibe. She automatically vitriolic towards frat bros. She likes your rhetoric, but you look like someone she'd normally hate. I know. That's the real discrimination. That's what it is. The real discriminatory practice out here is that there's a lot of people out here who would agree to what I have to say, but they can't get past the way I look and the way I carry myself. And honestly, that's racism. That's real racism. Anti-white man discrimination. Anti-white man discrimination is the real discrimination out here, okay? As a cisgender, heterosexual, white guy, okay, with bro-like tendencies, I hate how much people despise me for that. They want to judge the book by the cover and never actually read the book. Yeah, bromophobia. It's real. I don't like you because you seem like the kind of guy that would make a smoothie in a blender with stuff in it from the night before. I would never do that. That's worth a death sentence, honestly. Like, that's such a, I'm not going to say nothing, but that's such a crazy L. You know what I mean? What are you doing at that point? No spoilers, but I'm just saying, if you were to go to the kitchen and there's a blender in the kitchen with shit in it already, and you just like dump some more protein into it and go, all right, like, what are you doing? What are you doing at that point? You know, it's just natural selection running its course. You were not going to make it. Have you seen this DSA TikToker's recruiting tactic? Life after you join your uni, you get fair compensation for your labor. Sorry. I like this. Stud. Average Eagles fan protein shake. He wanted a taste of the pina colada because he wasn't allowed to have one. That's so stupid. No, I'm sorry. That's dumb as hell. In 2019, he used the phrase 35-year-old IT worker and I haven't forgiven you. Yo, that's fine. All right. We're not going to talk about why people don't like me, okay? That's stupid. That's enough of your reasonings as to why you think or why your friends that you've tried to put my stream on with are not into it. Enough. It's fine. They can be wrong. It's okay. I'm not for everybody. You know what I mean? He thought his brother had just made a protein shake. No, that doesn't make sense. That's still inappropriate. Anyway, I will say this much. The only time after the only time where a lot of people who normally would despise me because of the optics unironically turned around and were like, actually, there's a method to his like bro style where him speaking this language is probably a good thing. It might not be for me in particular, but he's working to actively de-radicalize people that, you know, are firmly on the grips of the right, and that's a good thing. And I was like, wow, finally some fucking people get it. And then of course very quickly they forgot. Like very, very quickly they were like, nah, actually he's just bad and problematic and wrong and whatever the fuck. And it's like, all right, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing though, you know, and you keep doing what you're doing. I know we got the Shamath piece here too. It's such a stupid thing that he voluntarily revealed. Also, 2 planes clip wings at DC's Reagan Airport because we need to bring gay pilots back. So you're a himbo grifter? No, I'm who I am. I am who I am unapologetically. I have the perspective. I have the perspectives that I maintain, but I'm not going to change my output, change the way I look, change the way I sound in an effort to be like extra accommodating. Okay? That's it. What is this? This happened almost 2 weeks ago. What the fuck? 2 jets bumped wings on the ground in Washington Reagan's airport with members of Congress aboard one of the planes. No injuries reported. Yeah, that would make you fake. Yeah, it would. I guess they associate bro style commentary reactionary thought. Yeah, but that juxtaposition in and of itself, I think, breaks through for a lot of people who need to hear it. You know, your gay ass don't need to hear my commentary. Oh yes, Shinshiro Watanabe, new show Lazarus. I fell asleep while watching it, and it was spectacular. For the brief moments that I did watch it, for the record, it was it's amazing. I like it. Lazarus was shite. No, I like it. No, Watanabe does not make shit, okay? Even Space Dandy is good. And if you don't actually agree with me on that, you just don't understand. You don't know ball. You don't know ball. You don't know game. Game recognized game, and that means you don't got game, okay? Sorry. You watched Devil May Cry. It was awful. It's fine. Space Dandy is underrated. Yeah, that's why I went with that one instead of the classics, Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, which everybody knows is some of the best anime of all time. All right. EU pauses retaliatory tariffs following Trump's trade U-turn.
The European Union says it is putting its retaliatory measures against the U.S. on hold after President Trump backed down first and paused his tariff plan for 90 days. The president of the European Commission said the pause is, quote, an important step towards stabilizing the global economy. European markets all solidly higher this morning. A lot of green there. Let's get right to CNN's Melissa Bell live in Paris. And, you know, the EU is basically taking a little bit of a victory lap, saying this is what happens when we stick together.
That's right, and hoping to stay unified on this. And what's interesting about their response to this 90-day pause, John, is not just that they're pausing what they were planning to do with regard to the reciprocal tariffs, which has been paused, but they're also stopping the rest of their responses. So, for instance, American tariffs on steel and aluminium of 25% remain on European companies. Europeans agreed yesterday on their response to that. They've decided to pause rolling out that response.
What? You're not a radical feminist? That's what bothers me. Hassan becoming a radical trans feminist would be nice, to be honest, but I don't even know where he stands on actual feminist theory right now. Yeah, this is what I mean, guys. This is literally what I mean. This is what I'm talking about, which is that, like, no, there is a limit to my output here. Okay, there's a limit to my brain. There's a limit here, and that limit is, you know, be nice to women. That's it. Like, if you think I'm gonna be I don't know, equipped with like dworkin thought, then I don't know. Probably not gonna happen. CDU and SPD are cutting social benefits as you predicted. Nice. Yeah. Your take about auto AGP is still bad. What? No, my take about AGP is not bad because you 100% agree with my take on it. You're just too stupid to fucking recognize what I just said. And you immediately heard me say it's okay to put bad concepts because human beings are bad and wrong in movies, but you didn't understand what I was saying, and you just lasered in on one side of that fucking commentary and immediately started dialing it up to 11. I'm not saying this is an appropriate thought. I'm simply saying inappropriate and wrong and reactionary thoughts should still very much be placed in fucking works, in normal works of art, because they're a part of the human condition. having said that, Mike White's placement of the AGP rhetoric was clearly from a reactionary perspective, where he tried to intellectualize a transphobic opinion, like a ooh, I'm a bad boy. Look at what I know. That's it. That's all I'm stating. So it was a shallow analysis from an outsider. Okay, and most people don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, shut up. It's crazy to hear Normans talk about AGP. Trans people barely do unless they have 4chan brainworms. I know. That's why I said, like, this is deep trans lore. You know what I mean? It's just like deep trans lore. It's just outdated, old school, fucking neo-Nazi created initial trans research that's just like anti-trans. That's what it is. All right, let's keep going. We're talking about fucking the EU and tariffs.
On the automobile and auto parts industry remain on Europe. For now, Europeans are also holding back. So a lot of restraint really being shown by the European Union here. They've really stopped all of the measures, both the ones they'd agreed on and the ones they were considering for now. Have a listen to what the Spanish Prime Minister had to say in response.
Nobody wins a trade war. Everybody loses. For this, the measure announced by the US administration, pending review of the exact details, seemed like an open door for negotiation, and as such to an agreement between countries.
So Europeans hopeful that negotiations can be reached, that negotiations can begin on all of these matters, but they also explain that they're going to continue to work together to look at very firm measures on both the automobile tariffs and the so-called reciprocals, so that if in 90 days, when that period comes to an end, should the American ones kick in, the Europeans should be ready to respond, and to respond very harshly, as we discussed yesterday. But for now, very much looking to see whether this pause...
Yeah. EU and China were looking at setting minimum prices on electric vehicles. So this was a major problem that, if you recall, I talked about quite extensively. Ursula von der Leyen was a year ago complaining about how China was stealing Europe's lunch money with their incredibly cheap, incredibly affordable, and very competitive electric vehicles. And if left unchecked, that the entire European manufacturing would fall apart because people would simply go and purchase Chinese vehicles, because it's impossible for European markets to compete with the affordable, accessible, and also good quality Chinese vehicles that are out there readily available. Donald Trump, of course, in this major five-head move, blowing up international trade, has made the European Union reconsider their position, and also even forced China's hand to basically raise its prices for its electric vehicles so that it doesn't outcompete the European market too much. So this is one of those moments where I think the EU is playing ball. They're playing ball with China a little bit. EU Trade Chief Sefcovic, Chinese Commerce Minister Wang have agreed to look into setting minimum prices rather than duties for China. Made EV imports Commission spokesperson says. I did not think that they would do this, I will admit, and I still don't think that they're going to follow through on this. I think potentially this is a move by the European Union to show America that they are not afraid of China, in an effort to bring America back to the table and reconsider the way that it's treating the EU. I would be shocked if the European Union was like, actually, we're not afraid of Chinese style governance. We like what they're doing, and we want to do it ourselves as well. That would be shocking, because that would undermine American hegemony in spectacular fashion.
Equals the beginning of negotiations.
Yeah, this is very much a case of what happens next. Melissa Bell in Paris today. Thanks so much for being with us.
Trump's reversal
I think this is a bluff.
led to an historic surge on Wall Street yesterday. U.S. markets, though, right now, let's take a look. Well, I'm going to go this direction. They are not in surge territory, if you will. Futures are down across the board. The White House is spinning this as all a kind of big win and part of a grand strategy by President Trump. Others, though, are saying that, well, he caved, he backtracked. And he retreated on demands that only he made, and a self-inflicted wound. The nation's biggest bank, JP Morgan Chase, is still sounding the alarm, even in the face of this move by Donald Trump about a possible recession this year. CNN's Zain Asher here with us now to talk about, and there has been a lot. I mean, what happens next is where everyone's mind has to be, especially when we're looking at futures like this. I mean, what is expected now with this U-turn, backtrack, and buckling of President Trump?
So I spoke to one analyst last night who said to me, can we please have a normal day on the markets?
No.
Just one normal day, because we have earned it. Looking at where futures stand right now, the last I checked, Dow was down about 500 points or so. I'm going to guess, Kate, that today is not going to be that day.
Yeah.
Now that everyone has had an opportunity to really sort of sober up and digest what we saw yesterday, I mean, obviously everyone has gotten over the shock, positive shock, but the shock of Donald Trump pausing these tariffs for 90 days. But now that everyone's had a chance to sort of sober up, the reality is setting in. You look at the facts. We're seeing a 10% tariff still on most parts of the world.
That's still historically high.
That is still historically high.
Yeah.
And on top of that, 25% tariff on steel, on aluminum, on autos as well, and not to mention the minor detail of triple-digit tariffs on China, with whom we import about $400 billion worth of goods every single year. What I think is really interesting is that you look at Dow futures, they're obviously down. You contrast that with what's happening with European stocks. If you could just pull up European stocks, squarely in the green. That's obviously because they're reacting to the 90-day pause, but also the fact that Europe is saying that they're not going to retaliate anymore. What I think is also interesting is what's happening with Asia stocks. Obviously, you would anticipate that the Asian stocks who are seeing tariff relief, so we could just...
What is this? EU? I really disagree about your EU trying to take. There's almost no fear of socialism from China. Rather, it's the potential of China acting like Trump by leveraging their monopoly on certain trade goods in the EU. Yeah, I just have a much more, look, I'm Turkish, okay? And as a Turkish person, my first interaction with Western chauvinism does not come from the United States of America, but instead comes from the European Union. So as a Turkish person, I'm also a little skeptical even when I hear Euro-communism coming from the likes of Yanis Varoufakis, who I love and admire. But when I see initiatives like DM25, sometimes I'm a little bit skeptical about that sort of thing, because in my experience, in my lifetime, what I have always seen from the European Union is a commitment, not necessarily to upholding human rights and values or whatever, but a arrogant attitude surrounding their positioning as the bastion of liberal capitalism. Okay? It's just, this is how it's perceived here. All I'm saying, yes, EU is more fiscally conservative and capitalist, but the public discourse is really not about socialism. Yeah, but we're not talking about public discourse. We're talking about European elites. We're talking about governments. When we're talking about governments, the wishes of the population are irrelevant. Okay? I mean, look at the Israel situation. Do you think that the overwhelming majorities of all Western nations now have the same exact opinion on Israel as their leaders? No, of course not. Every country is turned into a fucking Gulf state at this point, where the population literally despises Israel by pretty large numbers, as a matter of fact. But the governments are like, what do you mean? We love Israel. Shut the fuck up. So for me, I think I'm saying that I have a little bit of resentment for sure that clouds my judgment from time to time. But I also have, I will always maintain a healthy level of skepticism against European leadership, because at the end of the day, the European Union is a vehicle for capitalism. It is. That's what it is. That's what the European Union is there to do. And so I think that when push comes to shove, I still believe that European leadership will not decouple from the United States of America and find themselves in the hands of China. Because if China became the hegemonic power, then European capital would be undermined in that process, because they would have to restructure their own internal governance to reflect Chinese values or the Chinese economic order. They would have to, can you imagine every European country behaving like China, having command economies? I mean, that would be amazing. I would love that. I'm just saying that probably wouldn't happen. I 100% believe the EU will decouple from the US. If they make any moves towards taking Greenland, that would be awesome. Not the taking over Greenland. That would not be awesome. But I do think that, I mean, this is what I've been saying. I've been saying that the EU is also a fairly large consumption engine, okay? America is as well, but the EU also is a pretty large market with a lot of purchasing power as opposed to the rest of the world, as opposed to the global south, right? That would be amazing if they did that. If they turned around and said, you know, this American dominance is over. We recognize that there's a new game in town. We've been around for much longer than the American government has. You know, you got what, 200 plus years? We've been around for thousands, and it's time. It's time to go with a new master. Now, that one can only dream of a future such as that one. Okay? One can only dream. But I do think that there's still a lot of Orientalist framework here at play. And I talk to a lot of people that are not American. Let's put it that way. I talk to a lot of people who understand the European Union, who just, I would say, the attitude that they reflect oftentimes with what they say and what they don't say is that they are still very much fearful, like extra fearful of China. They consider China to be a really scary, like they're still afraid of Chinese dominance. Why are you talking of US, China as masters? What do you mean? Because those are the two different poles right now. Those are the two different global hegemonic superpowers. One has been the only game in town, especially post the dissolution of the USSR, and the other one has grown in spectacular fashion over the course of a very short period of time. Daily reminder that you don't know anything about the stock market. Stay in your lane, little bro. I mean, it's true. I don't. I still maintain the position that the stock market is gambling, and also money is fake. Value is so made up, especially with our global financialized economies. I mean, and I use the example of the fake tweet that caused the market to rebound for and recover $4 trillion in value over the course of an hour, only to have it evaporate once again, as the perfect distillation of my argument. Is a perfect example. I do really believe it. Like, it's not, I mean, I said this before. It's like cryptocurrencies is like playing roulette with a blindfold on versus the stock market is like playing blackjack, where the odds are higher but it's still not in your favor. And also on top of that, there's still the element of, it wasn't fake. It was just leaked early, and Trump couldn't take that. I don't think it was leaked early. I think that was something that they were presenting, and it was a brief moment where, like, I forget who it was, but one of Trump's guys went on Fox News and said, yep, no, Trump is going to do what he's going to do. And then everyone was like, oh, that's enough for us. Yes. And then they just kind of went along with it. But my point is, my point is the very fact that, like, that can create trillions of dollars worth of value instantly, and then only have it like evaporate. That in and of itself is like, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence in the stability of the stock market. I think if this isn't to say that there wasn't a time and place where like the stock market was entirely speculative. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think that just like the heavily financialized global economy has turned it into this thing that operates on confidence. There's still fundamentals behind it, for sure. That's why I say it's different than like playing roulette with a blindfold. It's more so playing blackjack. There's a rule book that you can follow. There are people who can count cards. You know what I mean? So there is a way to win. And there are fundamentals. There are basic fundamentals, but like ultimately there is still probability that it's still gambling. Motherfuckers, if your market has substance, then Hassan is no threat, so stop fixing your... What are you saying? Hassan, it's been an hour. Wrap up the both sides bullshit. I'm so confused. Stop sending me the new no way, no how banger Jay Mershon. Okay, I'm not going to watch it right now.
Just pull up Asia as well. Asian stocks that are seeing tariff reliefs, for example, the Nikkei, up about 9%. But Kate, check this out. Even the Shanghai Composite, right? Chinese stocks also rallying despite the 125% tariff increase. And that indicates to me that Chinese investors saw what Donald Trump did yesterday and are saying to themselves, well, look, this kind of indicates that if the pain is great enough for Americans, be it investors or perhaps later consumers, that Donald Trump is willing to back down, that he is willing to negotiate. So that's why the Shanghai.
Dude. I think anyone that thinks that there's any stability from Donald Trump is on fumes at this point. They're huffing maximalist copium. They're on crack cocaine and fentanyl. They're doing a speedball with crocodile on the side. Donald Trump has demonstrated over the course of this past week alone that he is a madman, hell-bent on destruction and incredibly stubborn and does not give a fuck. Yes, there are moments where he will scale back a little bit, but as demonstrated from the reality that he still tried to functionally create a trade embargo against our largest trading partner, that in and of itself is like, how do you look at that and go, yeah, no, this guy will really scale it back? It's like, no, he said he was going to kill you and then he chopped your leg off. That doesn't mean that you're in a better position overall than before he came into the room. You're legless now. He took one of your legs out. How the fuck can you sit there and be like, well, at least he didn't kill me? Like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? You got one leg now. You got a stump. Put down the crack pipe. They're so desperate to be like, this is the problem, okay? This is the problem with like institutionalists, institution defenders, where they're like, this entire thing can't collapse, right? On the whims of a madman. Like, that can't happen. There's no way. And I think people are just gonna go to their deaths saying, oh, no, he's just, there's surely something that he will respond to. See, he reacted in the way that we wanted him to. It's like, no, he didn't. He actually didn't do that at all. Did you want the art of the deal to be severing trade ties with our largest trading partner and simultaneously applying universal 10% tariffs to all of our other trading partners? Basically a de facto 10% sales tax increase, inflation, automatic inflation. This isn't, if you look at the situation, you go, well, this surely spells order. You're insane. You're an insane person. There is nothing orderly about what Donald Trump has done this fucking past week. The only reason why you think there's order is because you want to desperately believe that there is something going on there, that he's responsive to something, anything, and not simply insane.
Shanghai Composite ended the day there in the green.
And on that, that's why there's been a lot of really interesting reporting about how China has been preparing for this for a long time and is ready to unleash even more pain as it could be a very long fight.
One of the funniest aspects of Donald Trump's madness, by the way, and transparent graft, was when he just straight up did insider trading. Like, a bunch of his homies, and we'll find out who, especially those in Congress, when they, in like 9 days, they have to reveal their trade positions. Okay. But the insanity was just right before Donald Trump made his announcement, releasing the tariffs, okay, or putting a 90-day pause, like, people started trading like crazy. That's insane. Now, the expectation there is supposed to be, well, the SEC is going to look into this and they're going to punish these people that are doing insider trading. Donald Trump maybe also could be the first person who's ever done outsider trading as well, which was when he was like, buy now on fucking Truth Social. But if you think that the SEC is going to look into this, you're out of your dang mind, because as we know, the administrative state is completely captive to Donald Trump. There's no regulatory agency that can like go against the big dog at this point. Here, Donald Trump's audio was caught on this video explaining that his billionaire friends made billions yesterday with tariffs and stock market manipulation. The SEC needs to investigate. Yeah, good luck.
He made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million.
I mean, I get that there's plausible deniability to what he's saying here, right? He could be like, come on, the markets are looking good. You made billions. But yeah, it's robber baron speedrun. Oh yeah. NASDAQ call volume spiked minutes before the 90-day tariff pause was announced. Not a good look at all. Yeah, I wonder. Not a good look at all. How did that happen? Chat, how did this happen? Dude, it's so funny. Like I said, it's transparent. The graft is transparent, okay? It's out there, it's open, it's for all to see. He did this with cryptocurrency first, where he just straight up was like, I mean, he did a fucking crypto rug pull before the day before his inauguration. He did a fucking cryptocurrency launch, okay? It was insane. And then what did he do? He did the exact, he's treating the stock market like it's fucking cryptocurrency now. It's just straightforward robber baron shit. And it's funny because like the average American is too busy living paycheck to paycheck to recognize that they're doing this in fucking broad daylight. Okay? And they're living paycheck to paycheck. They're too invested in the fucking podcast sphere and think that like trans people are doing this, you know what I mean? Or they don't even think about this at all. So yeah, when Caroline Leavitt says this is the most transparent administration ever, she's right. Like they are transparently fucking you over. And unfortunately, many people are too invested in the minutia and silliness to actually recognize that they're getting fucked over. CoffeeZilla also covered is this market manipulation. We'll talk about that as well. We'll watch this as well, but let's keep going.
What are China's options?
Okay, so a couple of things. This time yesterday, we saw China in the same boat pretty much as the rest of the world. They had a little bit more pain inflicted on them compared to everyone else, but they were more or less in the same boat. Now they are completely isolated, and that is a strategy deliberately designed by Donald Trump to make the Chinese regret retaliating. In terms of who blinks first, whether it's going to be Donald Trump, whether it's going to be Xi Jinping, Kate, your guess is as good as mine. But what I will say is that we've talked a lot on this show about American consumers and the fact that they are going to suffer in all of this. What I think is also important to note is that Chinese economy has been suffering for quite some time. They're dealing with slower growth, slower GDP. They have a real estate market crunch.
What the hell? Yo, that was crazy. What the hell? What the hell? What the heck? That was weird. That was weird as hell. That's the internet telling you to stop watching CNN. Bro, it's not the problem there wasn't me watching CNN. It happened right as I retweeted the Chinese embassy, bro. I swear to God. Chinese embassy, we don't back down. We are Mao Ning, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, says we are Chinese. We are not afraid of provocations. We don't back down. They dusted the old Mao tapes and brought it out. And the Chinese embassy in the U.S. said, we don't back down. And I quote retweeted, I said, they're aura farming with Mao. I'm losing it. And then boom, I got blasted into orbit. Suspicious F right there. Very suspicious F. The CIA hit my stream with the heart attack gun. Stop watching the Clinton News Network. I thought you were apolitical. Don't worry, brother. I'm an American patriot. Are you Chinese CIA? I fucking wish, dude. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? It's called Havana Syndrome. It's called Havana Good Time, chat. All right, let's keep going.
Xi Jinping. This decision by him of how to respond to this is just as much economic as it is political. The good news, as you talked about, Xi Jinping has had time to prepare. We saw this coming, of course. But they have a controlled economy. So they have levers that they can pull in order to shield their economy from tariffs. So, for example, they're already devaluing the currency just to make their exports a little bit cheaper. And that's why we're seeing Asian markets, especially the Shanghai Composite, rallying on the hope that perhaps there is going to be a deal here.
Yeah, so who has the upper hand in this, we'll call it a chess match right now, and we will see more evidence of that today.
We'll see.
It's great to see you. Thank you so much. John.
All right, joining us now, Jason Furman, the former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors and now a professor of economic policy practice at the Harvard Kennedy School. Professor, thanks so much for being with us. So is this a case now of no harm, no foul, the tumult over?
Absolutely not. This is above and beyond what the president campaigned on doing. And at the time, most people discounted those threats and thought he'd only fulfill.
This surely this is a sign of stability and order when you got a situation where people are like, oh, No one believed his campaign promises. I mean, come on now. Just a normal political process here in the United States of America where you just go, remember when he said tariffs is the most beautiful word in the English language? No one fucking believed him. They thought maybe it's like the 10th most beautiful word in the English language. Oh, man, we all thought he was playing around, dude. Why would you think that? Why would you think that he was playing around? This shit is so goddamn annoying. This cannot be the underlying basis of your political identity where you go, I'm just voting for this guy because of vibes. I hate this. I'm voting for this guy because of the goddamn vibes. I don't think that he's serious or sincere about his policies, or rather, I haven't really thought thoroughly what would happen if he implemented these policies. Like, not to self-glaze too much here, but I've been fucking screaming about this for a year at this point. Since he started talking about the tariff shit, I was like, this is going to have a really long-lasting, damaging impact on global trade. How do you not see that? It's the same principle behind mass deportations. You can't do that because it's like, one, incredibly inhumane, two, logistically impossible to do, and three, would collapse American agriculture overnight for no reason either, by the way, for no good reason. Like, that's not a real fear that people have. It's just completely unwarranted. It improves nothing, and it's just about being a bad person. Being mean for the sake of cruelty in and of itself. It pisses me off. It pisses me off when people are just like, well, I didn't think that he was going to do this. I thought he was just joking. Okay, well, I thought he was going to do this, but I didn't think the impact would be this bad. It's like, well, you're a fucking dumbass then. What do you mean? There are plenty of people who knew that it was going to be bad. What are we talking about? What are we talking about? What the hell is this?
Part of them. Tariffs are still very, very high, and we're about to start seeing it in the real economy.
That's a long-winded way of calling Trump supporters stupid. No, Democrats have this stupid dog in them too. There's a lot of people who have this stupidity in them, and it's partially a consequence of, like, I guess, reaping the rewards of living here in the United States of America and having some semblance of stability for so long, despite unstable leadership time and time again. But like, or a lack of confidence in any form of governance actually following through on their agendas. Americans just don't know a world where a politician says they're going to do something and they follow through on it. That's what it is. And they also quite literally do not believe the impact of said legislative agenda until it happens. We saw this. We saw this with the abortion stuff. Every single fucking politician said abortion is murder, abortion is murder. Every single fucking right-wing politician said abortion is murder, abortion is murder. You can't do murder. And then, lo and behold, Roe v. Wade gets overturned after the Supreme Court justices straight up lied to the American public and said it was a super precedent. But then they reversed it. And then everyone was like, okay, some murder is cool, actually. I think we got to do some exceptions for murder. Why did they do that? Why did they all of a sudden go, it's not actually all murder. Some of the murder is awesome. I love when you do the murder, actually. Abortion is murder, but some murder is great. Like, why did they do that? It's because people immediately went, oh my God, I never really thought that if abortion was illegal, that my daughter might need to get an abortion one day. And due to a medical complication, for example, and not be able to get it and die. Like, that's fucked up. That's really bad. I didn't think about this. It's like, why didn't you think about this? It's kind of the whole point of why we shouldn't be setting these like erroneous standards for no fucking reason, because it's going to be ultimately harmful. That's like, there are plenty of people who've been yelling about this for years. I've been yelling about this for years. Same shit with the tariffs. Same shit with mass deportation. Same shit now with the erosion of due process and the erosion of the First Amendment. These are concepts that are literally being taken away from all of us right now. And it's alarming. And I keep ringing the alarm bells. But if you ask the average American, they have no ability to understand that this is fucked up. They have no ability to think, well, this might actually harm me down the line. Americans are always playing catch up. Liberals and Republicans alike, liberals and conservatives alike, they're always playing catch up, where they go, oh man, I voted for this guy. I think what he's doing is good. I didn't realize that it would inevitably impact me. Shit. The leopard's eating my face party. Always.
In the prices that families pay, in the layoffs that companies are going to be doing.
All the reporting, it was the bond market that spooked the president and forced his hand, led him to blink here. Can you explain, for all of us who may not have taken Act 10, exactly what was happening with the bond market and if those fears are still over, or fears are still existent, I should say?
Yeah, normally when you're going into a downturn, you would think that the Fed is going to cut interest rates and interest rates are going to come down. But what was really scary was that interest rates were going way up. And that's because investors around the world, reportedly some of them in Japan, but around the world and in the United States, were more nervous about the United States. They didn't trust our country. They didn't want to lend to our country. And because of that, that made interest rates go up, just like any other borrower who's not particularly creditworthy is going to end up with higher interest rates.
In the New York Times reporting that the president knows what that means. As someone who worked in real estate, when interest rates start going up, it just gets harder to do business. What do you think China sees here? We just heard from Zain Asher on this. Do you think they see this as a chance now to talk? Do they feel isolated, or do they see now that the president will blink when facing certain pressures?
The president has shown over and over again a willingness to blink. In his first term with China, when he would negotiate deals with them, it was largely deals about how to not escalate further.
Oh, look at that. After yesterday's pause, I was like, okay, back from the edge, but I'm still worried about recession dynamics taking hold. I didn't think that 24 hours later, we'd be back to staring at this chart of long-term yields. I mean, part of the issue is that I shouldn't even be calling it a pause. It's giga tariffs on China. Yeah, this is what I mean. Yesterday, we all looked at the market being green, and I told you this is an insane moment, okay? This is an insane moment where people are very clearly demonstrating that the stock market does not have the fundamentals baked into it, where very clearly people are just hoping on a dream. They're wish casting for stability when no semblance of stability exists. I told you this. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy to go, yeah, actually, things are fine now because we only have 10% tariffs universally and like 200% tariffs on China, our largest trading partner. That's crazy. What do you mean? What the fuck do you mean the stock market is supposed to normalize in that process? What are you talking about? It was just a hope and a dream, dude. People were just wish casting stability. I don't know how so many intelligent people looked at the situation and went, oh, it's rebounding. Finally. Okay. There's a brief moment of respite for 90 days. It's like, no, there isn't. There literally is no respite here. Are you fucking stupid? I mean, I guess the answer is yes. I don't know if it was stupidity, denial, or naivete. It's crazy. Jeff Stein from WAPO says, I know this is an incredibly old and boring point now, but it's remarkable watching how the ostensibly data-driven stock market is driven so heavily by vibes. Shout out to Kyla Scanlon. Nothing has changed from yesterday's surge to today's decline, other than everyone realizing the tariffs on China are now 125%, even though this was known yesterday. That's what I mean. I am not a finance guy. As Stocky correctly pointed out, I don't know shit about the stock market. But the one thing I do know is that it is psychotic to assume that things got better when we are trying to use a hatchet to sever ties with our fucking largest trade partner. Are you stupid that you thought things were going to get better? It is so obvious an indication of the market's irrationality right here with what happened yesterday. And all these dumb fucks posting the green as though it's any indication of where things are going. Like, what are we talking about? You don't have to be a fucking finance bro or even understand market fundamentals to look at the situation and go, hey guys, I know a lot of people have this unfounded confidence all of a sudden because Donald Trump at least backed away from some of the most meaningful parts of his agenda, but things are still pretty bad, don't you think? At this point, it's like they want the line to keep going up because that's all they've known. So they'll hold on to any glimmer of hope to make the line go up. It is quite literally held together by a bunch of people hallucinating an alternative reality. A quick read of Stock Trading for Dummies would empower the average educated adult with all the knowledge they need to realize how fucked the situation is. VIX and VVIX are diverging from each other, i.e. professionals are out of the market right now and retail traders are not known as the most rational actors in the financial markets. Anyone that says this is coping. You are coping. If you think institutional traders do not also engage in this exact same irrational behavior, you are wrong. You are imaginably wrong. First and foremost, I don't even believe that retail traders could automatically hit the panic button and cause the market to move in this direction in this decentralized manner where they all just came to the same conclusion. Okay? You cannot do that without institutions. That's number one. Number two, institutional traders also engage in the same exact irrational behavior. The exact same irrational behavior. 100%. So the reality of the matter is the market movements from yesterday to today are not just done by retail traders losing confidence or gaining confidence out of nowhere, whereas like institutional traders, actually institutions themselves like are still solidly on board with the market fundamentals and they knew that this wasn't going to happen, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not real. It's just like beyond cope. You are doing the same. I think you're doing the same, demonstrating the same naivete that I talk about all the time, which is the infallibility of institutions. The idea that like no matter what happens, there's some adults in the room and they're still holding on to the concepts that I learned in my textbooks. Okay. Asma's chat is cheering for the 125% tariffs and wanting to go up to 400%. I love that. They're so stupid. I love that. I love how fucking stupid Asmongold's fan base is. It's amazing. They are unironically bringing out the pitchforks to literally shove it in their own asses. There is nothing funnier to me than watching a bunch of fucking hogs cheering on initiatives that fuck them. Okay? It's funny. I'm sorry. It's fucking hilarious.
Rather than to de-escalate. But now we're starting from triple-digit tariffs on China in the United States, nearly 100% tariffs on the United States in China. It's really, really hard to picture how either of our economies will be able to function, deliver job gains, deliver benefits to consumers in the midst of a very, very extreme trade war. So some which way, someone's going to need to blink, or else we're both.
This is not real. Make showers great again. Go fuck yourself. That's not real. That's funny. Okay. If something goes down 10%, then an up percent, are you back where you started? No, because the decrease is from a bigger number. E.g., 100 minus 10 is 90. Plus 9 is 99. Huh? Down 10%, then up 10%. Then why is your e.g. not 100 minus 10, 90, plus 10, 100? Where'd the 9 come from? Oh my, what is going on? Why would it be plus 10 at that point? Does he think 10% of 90 is still 10? Does he think 10% means just 10 always? Like not 10%, but just 10, the actual number. No, I don't care. No. No. We're not doing this. I can't stare into the abyss. This is like when No. This is like when I watched videos of fucking people being like, how can the mirror see what's behind this towel? I can't do that. I cannot fucking do that. I am not doing that. Stop it. Stop it. There's already enough stupidity that I have to deal with on a fucking daily basis. What the fuck? There's already enough. We're laughing about people being like, hell yeah, make the fucking tariffs 400%, big dog. Yeah, I'll just grind harder. Like, people are like, yeah, make those tariffs 400%. I'll just fucking grind harder. Make the cost of living impossible to survive. I'll fucking survive somehow.
Going into recession.
Talk to me about what you are looking for, I guess, in the next hours and days. Everything's moving so quickly here. There's so many twists. But what are the next shoes that could drop in your mind?
To me, it's number one, are we hearing about more new tariffs? The president has talked about tariffs on pharmaceuticals, on semiconductors, on lumber. Is he still talking about those new tariffs? Number two, that 10% on every country in the world, that's pretty high. That goes on all our friends and foes alike, with the exception of Russia, which doesn't get it. Is that there to stay, or is that part of the negotiation? And then number three, what's happening with China?
This is CNN Breaking News.
And we begin this hour with President.
I do find it very funny that like everyone is operating with this though. Like liberals did this as well, and now Republicans were doing it yesterday, and everyone just goes, "Oh well, the market's green. That means it's good. Everything is good now." And then when it's red, they're like, "Wait a minute, why is everything red again? What is going on?" It's like, yeah, everything is confusing to you, of course, because you're stupid. Let me fix the problem here, okay? If you consistently look at market movements without any sort of care or consideration to long-term stability or instability, long-term results of the actions that the Trump administration is taking, you're going to be like, I don't get it. It's red and now it's green. What's happening? All the time. There was a brief moment where a lot of the Trumpian guard, the Trumpian vanguard was coming out and being like, obviously, market volatility is not indicative of like what happens in the economy broadly. And it was awesome. It was funny hearing them say things that I've been saying for years, right? Of course, they didn't fucking believe it. And they were just saying it because in the interim, they just wanted to defend Donald Trump. That wasn't a principle that they had. They hadn't thought it through. I'll give you a great example, okay? Here's a great example of how the stock market performance doesn't necessarily indicate long-term stability or health for the overall economy, especially for the working class. Mergers and acquisitions. One big company takes over a smaller company and then engages in layoffs and, let's say, lays off 20,000 employees. They call that eliminating redundancy. The stock performance is great in that process. But the reality is 20,000 people just got fucking laid off. Do you think that's a good thing? No, of course not. So clearly, this is, in the most reductive term, in the most reductive ways possible, a great indication that maybe the stock market is not reflective to the living conditions of the average American. Perhaps that is a good starting point for all of you. Take that home with you and think about that and expand on that information when you go on this journey. It's pretty basic stuff, really. I don't know how else to explain it to people, really. Like, what can I do other than that? That has been debunked. If you knew Trumponomics, you'd know that. Yeah, my bad.
President Trump set to meet with his cabinet as a key part of his second-term agenda hangs in the balance right now up on Capitol Hill. And after a week of tariff whiplash here in the United States as the president's trade war clearly intensifies.
And as we know, Wall Street doesn't like the uncertainty, right? Wednesday's green bounce after the tariffs were paused, that has turned into Thursday's red reality check. Let's go to CNN Chief National Affairs Correspondent Jeff Zeleny at the White House. And Jeff, you have reporting along with your White House colleagues about how this all came to be with the pause and this cabinet meeting today as well.
Good morning, Pamela. It certainly was an extraordinary turn of events yesterday, not even quite 24 hours ago, but we have learned that it certainly was the advice that the president was receiving from some members of his cabinet, including the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, who will be in that room today when the cabinet is meeting. He was the one, of course, who was really sounding the alarm and telling the president how deep the bond markets were reacting to the president's sweeping tariff plan. So one thing that this whole situation has really shined a light on are the differing pieces of advice that the president was hearing from Scott Bessent, for example, the Treasury Secretary, versus his longtime trade advisor, Peter Navarro, who was urging the president not to make negotiations. A big question, though, heading into this cabinet meeting, is Elon Musk going to be in the room? We have not seen much of him in recent days, but he's been very active on social media. And his view on this sweeping tariff plan was that it was not good for the economy. So he was throwing stones, quite literally, at the top trade advisor. But the top economic advisor
Is it real that EU is considering removing tariffs on China EVs? Yeah, but I don't think that they're going to. I think what is going to happen, this is my suspicion, this is my speculation, wee-woo speculation alert, is that they want some kind of price adjustment from Chinese companies in general. Like, they don't want China to enter the market with uncompetitive, with prices that are impossible to compete with from the European market. So they're going to probably want they're probably going to want BYD to increase their prices on their end so that they can maintain trade and allow China to continue manufacturing, make up for some of the manufacturing output that they lost from the United States of America in the short term. But I think it's more so a bluff regardless. I think it's EU bluffing against America. That's what I think. Yeah, EU wants price minimums, exactly. Because there's no way that they would allow China to enter the European market with the prices that China wants to enter the market with, because then they would actually get fucking cleaned out. No one would purchase a European car ever again inside of the EU. I hope it's not just a bluff, and I hope it is a signal for a long-term sustainable trade partnership with China, and perhaps even another indication that the major market of the European Union is moving away from American hegemony into the comfortable bosom of the Chinese empire. The 100 years of Chinese prosperity is upon us. So we shall see. Do you think this will strengthen BRICS and allow for a partitioning of the economy and solidifying socialist power? We'll see. All I can think of is that the more the EU moves in the direction of China, the more insane Trump will get.
Kevin Hassett talked about the cabinet meeting earlier like this.
STR has informed us that there are maybe 15 countries now that have made explicit offers that we're studying and considering and, deciding whether they're good enough to present to the president. The Chief of Staff's office has asked all the principals that have, skin in the game to come and discuss what their views are about how this should go. And that's what the purpose of the meeting is.
So the offers that Kevin Hassett is talking about there are from allies like Japan, South Korea, and others who have opened lines of communication trying to lower their tariff percentage with the president. So this is all coming as the trade war is very much still on with China. There is no question about that. But the U.S. is trying to sort of circle our allies, if you will, Wolf, to have a united front against China.
And it's interesting, Jeff, Kevin Hassett is also pushing back on suggestions that President Trump actually manipulated the markets when he told people it was a, quote, good time to buy only hours before announcing the pause. Democratic Senator Adam Schiff of California says he plans to write to the White House about it. How is the administration defending itself?
Well, if there is no question that timeline of a few hours between when the president sent that message, be cool, time to buy, versus about 1:18 yesterday afternoon East Coast time when the president sent out his message about a pause on this. What happened during that intervening time? Did anyone have a heads up at all? Kevin Hassett, again, the president's top economic advisor, told us a short time ago that there was no insider trading or any type of activities going on, but Democrats on Capitol Hill are not convinced of that. But Wolf, the reality is, since Republicans control Capitol Hill, there will not be any type of a committee investigation. However, this will be something, a moment in time, really those 4 hours in time yesterday that will be viewed in the coming days. But for now, at least, the trade war on against China, the cabinet meeting is underway shortly, Wolf.
All right, Jeff Zeleny at the White House for us. Jeff, thank you.
So let's check in now with CNN business and politics correspondent Vanessa Yurkevich. She is standing by at the New York Stock Exchange. Vanessa, what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, well, listen, markets are down this morning coming off that enormous rally yesterday. And I spoke to a veteran trader, Peter Tuchman, just a short time ago. And he told me that the real reaction of Wall Street really comes the day after. Yesterday was this relief rally, and today reality has set in, that we are still very much in the middle of a trade war with still historically high tariffs. That 90-day pause on those high reciprocal tariffs are very welcome news to traders here I spoke to a few yesterday after the market closed who said that anytime the Dow is up nearly 3,000 points, that is a good day. However, today they are facing down high tariffs on China, that 125% tariff.
Like, what happened? Did they open up their fucking eyes? Like, this is what I don't understand. This was the reality yesterday. What happened? This is why I had that conversation with Nate Tankes where I was like, the money is fake. Okay. Like, I'm sorry. You will never convince me that this is real. Okay. The value in the stock market is just like, is firmly held together by anything but confidence. It's just crazy.
You have those tariffs in place, 25% on autos. And then, of course, you have that 10% universal tariff that is...
Wait, people are saying it's 145. Did Trump increase it again? What happened? Is that like a thing? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Once you go past like 40% or even 30%, really, it truly doesn't matter. You are just firmly committed. You're just firmly committed to severing trade ties with China. And I think that it's going to get even crazier. I think America is, you want to know what I think Donald Trump's going to try to do? Here's a couple things that Donald Trump could still try to do. One, try to stop like Chinese companies from being traded on. That's number one. But more importantly, try to also enforce some kind of trade embargo or rather punishments on secondary markets that work with China, which was his initial goal with these universal tariffs, like when he was slapping Vietnam with stuff. I think that it's not just about America not trading with China. It's about the rest of the world not trading with China. So I do think that, I do think that there's a couple more tools in his tool belt of mania where, you could, I don't even know how the delisting stocks would work. I don't know. I'm not a stock market guy at all. But I do think that the American initiative in this situation would be to the American move in this situation would basically be to just do North Korea shit to China. But you can't do North Korea shit to China. You see what I'm saying? You can't do North Korea or Iran to China. China is far too powerful and far too important to the entire trade regime that we have designed for the past 40 fucking years. China has become undeniable, impossible to avoid. Forex Live, Trump admin. Oh my God. Yep, there it is. Trump admin is moving towards a possible delisting of Chinese public shares. This is psychotic, dude. They are fucking psychotic. Are you joking? Here's a report from Charlie Gasparino at Fox Business. Sources: Trump administration is moving towards a possible delisting of Chinese public co-shares on U.S. exchanges. Sources: incoming SEC Chair Paul Atkins. Dude, everything we're doing to China, I wish we would do to Israel, by the way. Like, it would be so warranted to do to Israel, and yet we will never do that to Israel. Oh my God. The dream. The dream, baby. The friggin' dream. Helicopter crashed into Hudson. The chopper broke off midair and dropped. Oh, my Lord. Everything is happening. Everything is happening all at once. BBC has a special report on it.
Which,
okay,
by the way,
I'm not going to cover it right now.
A pretty rough current.
Yeah,
I'm not going to cover it right now. I'll get to it in a little bit. Let me finish this at least.
In effect right now, and you see the markets there right now, the Dow down about more than 2.5%. Look at the NASDAQ down more than 4%. The S&P down almost 3.5% there. But the big questions that I'm hearing from traders here today are sort of, what are the off-ramps here to this trade war? What are the negotiations that need to be happening between these more than 75 countries in the administration? And then especially looking at China, because so many of the companies that are traded on Wall Street here have direct ties to China, get many of their products from China. So what
about taking back Chinese-owned U.S. land? It's nothing. What are you talking about? Chinese-owned U.S. land is so minuscule. Go ahead. Claw it away from the Chinese investors. Like, what are you talking about? That's just fucking meme shit. It is literally podcast meme shit, dude. Stop listening to podcasts. Holy fuck. China is like not even in the top 10 of land buyers in terms of foreign investment. It's nothing. It is so insanely marginal. It is so tiny. It is so minuscule. It's nothing.
does that look like? One analyst said to me this morning that some of these negotiations could actually center more around other things, non-tariff related things, something like with China, maybe a deal with TikTok, or even a deal with the Panama Canal. Those are the questions that they have. What is the off-ramp for this trade war for the president? So here today, I would say less uncertainty, but still a level of uncertainty about where this trade war is going, Pamela. Obviously, we're not seeing sort of those dramatic swings this morning that we've seen in the past several weeks. That is because very much investors here know we're still in the middle of this. Obviously, though, good sign that that 90-day pause went into effect just yesterday, Pamela.
Yeah, I mean, clearly investors are sending the signal, though, that they understand this is far from over. There's a lot to be worked out, but you do have businessmen like billionaire investor Bill Ackman, a Trump ally, celebrating this.
Yeah, Bill A. Packman, Bill Smokes Crackman, absolute dummy. Every single one of these people that are supposed to be like brilliant investors and all this shit, every single one of these people have shown that they are delusional morons. They are just regime enjoyers, even if the regime is shanking them. All the way from Elon Musk to Bill A. Packman, okay?
Pause. He was among the business leaders who had turned on the president over his tariff plans. He's now praising the pause and implementing many of those taxes. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we know the past several days leading up to these reciprocal tariffs going into effect, Bill Ackman, who, as you mentioned, is a billionaire, he is the founder of a huge hedge fund, he was saying that these tariffs would be, I'm reading here, quoting, economic nuclear war. So he said that leading up to Wednesday's tariffs, and he was warning that this could be really terrible for the economy. Now that the president has reversed course and put this 90-day pause into effect, he is coming out and saying that, yes, he was raising concern, but he's praising the president in what he calls the art of the deal, that the president actually did right by this deal. And Bill Ackman and other billionaires were raising those alarms for several days, but many of them are seeing a little bit more of a relief here that the president has maybe listened to advisors, as Bill Ackman said, and really sort of put into place more of a better roadmap for billionaires right now that really, you know, they play in the stock market. They obviously have their businesses tied to the stock market, Pamela. They can be against him one day and with him the next day as they see their stocks rise, Pamela.
All right, Vanessa Yurkevich, thanks so much.
Let me bring in Anna Stewart. So, Anna, we've been seeing European stocks rallying, not just on the news that the Americans were pausing these tariffs for 90 days, but also the fact that the Europeans were going to reverse the retaliatory tariffs that they put into effect yesterday as well. Take us through that.
Yeah, look at that rally. It's pretty strong, and that's largely because, of course, European markets were actually closed when the 90-day pause was announced. So they didn't have a rally yesterday. We're seeing it here, and I think it is being sustained as well by the fact that the EU is also going to pause for 90 days. Although the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that while they will pause for 90 days, if negotiations are not satisfactory, our countermeasures will kick in. So a bit of a warning there. But I think for European investors, this is possibly the first time that it's actually felt like almost a reality that perhaps the US administration will negotiate with them. Up to this point, the EU has, for instance, offered 0 tariffs on industrial goods, on autos, and that's frankly been ignored. So perhaps this is an opportunity. Very different story elsewhere in the markets. Of course, Wall Street has opened lower today. The relief rally there is over, and by a number of metrics, you know, even from JP Morgan not shifting their outlook in terms of recession, keeping it at 60%. Some of these assets suggest that people are still pricing in the likelihood of a recession. Oil prices steeply lower at this stage, about 4.6% lower.
It's like, see, I did it. I lowered the oil prices. I promised you I would do it. Demand might be down in the future due to a complete collapse of global trade. But believe me, oil prices are down. I fixed it.
Under the $60 barrel. It could finish today at the lowest.
It's ironic because the last time that oil prices went down incredibly, Trump was president again. And he literally also constantly pointed to that. It was COVID. Donald Trump was like, remember how low oil was? Yeah, during COVID? Thanks, man. Yeah, it was awesome. I remember. Fantastic. People's relatives are just fucking dying in the hospital. It was awesome. Thank you, sir. You did it. Oh, it's amazing. He's doing it. He's doing it. I told you I would bring oil prices down, and I'm doing it again.
It's been since April 2021. We're also seeing that the US dollar fell sharply, and the bond yields, the 10-year bond yields in the US, which of course President Trump was concerned about, we haven't seen much of a shift there. So we've had this huge reversal, but actually a lot of the fears, a lot of the yippiness, if that is even a word, is still out there.
A lot of golf players will know exactly.
I want to turn now to Michael McKee, our international economics and policy correspondent, who has been, listening in as the president and his team have been speaking, but also paying very close attention to the 30-year bond auction that we saw just a moment ago, and also the undulations that we have seen and continue to see in the markets, both in the bond market and the stock market, and to the economic data that we got as well, the CPI data this morning. Mike, I just want to get your reaction to what you heard there, and maybe give us your sense of sort of what these next 90 days look like. Here we have an administration eager to broker deals, as we heard there in that meeting. That's meeting with the realism of how difficult it is to broker trade deals historically, all the nuances and details that go into them.
Well, it took a year, more than a year, to renegotiate NAFTA, and almost nothing was changed in that treaty that came out as the USMCA. So I think you have to approach what this administration is saying about these deals with a great deal of skepticism. For example, we heard there, and we've heard from others in the administration, that 70 countries have approached the administration. But Kevin Hassett said this morning on...
Yeah, also, my favorite part about the 70 countries that have approached the American administration is that they won't reveal who the countries are. So, like, we don't even know if they approached it. I'm sure they did. Like, plenty of them have. Like, Japan, we know for a fact, approached America. And South Korea is another one. But it's like, I don't even fucking know if they... Dude, please stop. Please stop posting this. I got it. Xi Jinping unravel meme. Come on. Come on. Stop spamming. You just got auto-modded. I'm once again finding myself in this weird predicament. Because on the one hand, I'm like watching a lot of this neoliberal design unravel in real time as contradictions heighten in the hands of a madman hell-bent on death and destruction. But also, on the other hand, I can't even entertain this notion for too long because I recognize the impact that it will have on the average person in the United States of America and also around the world. It is very frustrating. It is very frustrating because, like, this sort of instability or some semblance of volatility would always happen. The you need the medicine, right? Like when the body is ill and we heal the body, we do surgery, you need a little bit of medicine, and in the process, like, yeah, there's going to be some harm in the short term, but it's for a grand design. It's for health and stability in the long term. Like, that part is true. It's just Donald Trump is not doing that. He's not doing that at all. So what's frustrating about this is once again, he's just kind of fucking up the global economy because he's bored, if that makes sense. That's he's just, yeah, when I fuck up the economy because I'm bored, when I kill the global economy because I'm bored is kind of what's happening. You using the sick patient Trump analogy? No, it's not the wrong analogy. That analogy is not incorrect, except the patient has cancer and Trump chopped off the fucking leg of the patient for no reason. So the cancer still remains, and now you're legless.
One of the other networks that there are 20 countries. So, I mean, what is the actual truth? And what are we actually going to get out of it? And how much of this is going to be tariff reduction? And how much of this would have anything to do with non-tariff barriers? I mean, remember, they went after the Europeans and the British for having a VAT tax. Does that get addressed? Yep. So a lot of reasons to be skeptical about what they're talking about. But what we can say will happen.
Do I see an off-ramp for the Trump-China shit? Yes, I do. Given China's restraint in all things global trade, in all things foreign policy, I think China offers a aesthetic victory to Trump. But I don't even know if I could see this. I could see China offering a fig leaf to Donald Trump, like opening up a factory, like a BYD factory or some shit in America. I could see that. Maybe sweeten the deal with TikTok on the side, just to stop Trump from killing himself. And that's only because fig leaf, olive branch, whatever. I could see them doing that. It's just I don't think that America would be convincible, regardless of what China does. And that's number one. And number two, stop with the fantasy. I'm just saying, I this is not what I think is going to happen. This is not what I'm saying is going to happen. You asked me if there's an off-ramp here, and even though all of these alternative scenarios are very, very unlikely, the highest likelihood of all of these alternative scenarios that are still incredibly unlikely would be China trying to give Donald Trump like an aesthetic victory here. Having said that, I don't think America would take that and then go, okay, we're good now, because Donald Trump has shown once again that he is not interested in reason.
Happen is if these other tariffs that are already in place stay in place, we will see prices go up and we will see the economy slow down. It's going to be very interesting. These are very heavily weighted, obviously, towards China, and we import a lot of stuff from China. So how is that going to affect the American consumer's psyche if they can't get things from China?
Well, and investor psyche as well. After the remarkable gains of yesterday, the best day since 2008, obviously we have a massive reversal on our hands with 5% losses on both the S&P.
I do want to say something here, but like, if Donald Trump hadn't done this, I know for a fucking fact, you will never convince me on this, I know for a fact that China would just not fuck up the bag and would continue doing what it's doing without actually escalating or at any point trying to undermine American hegemony. There is 0% chance. They want stability. They want stability because in that stability as the dollar is still the superpower, they get to do things within this system that allow Chinese prosperity to fucking happen. I don't think China shill, okay, well, this is perhaps one of the many instances where we are in my moment of vindication. Like, you're living through my China shill vindication moment, and yet you're still saying I'm a China shill. It's pretty funny. I have found myself vindicated many times over on a lot of the things I speak about in terms of foreign policy, in terms of American long-term instability. But this is like coming in here in this very moment as America is undermining its own hegemonic power in the hands of seemingly a fucking madman, and you're still over here being like, you're a China shill. Okay. I think you will arrive at my position eventually. Long-term watchers already know what my opinion is here, you know?
S&P 500 and even greater for the NASDAQ 100. And we know markets did play a role in the decision-making of President Trump yesterday, though he was specifically concerned about the bond market, talking about queasiness, Mike. And I wonder if a little bit of that queasiness has been abated, not just by the tariff moves, by once again, for a long-duration Treasury auction, the 30-year yield, it looks like demand was a bit better than expected.
Yeah, the 30-year comes in reasonably strong. It stops through 2.7 basis points, about what we saw with the 10-year yesterday. It does suggest that people are out there looking for duration. Dealers took less. Directs, though, took a lot more than they did yesterday. Direct bidders and indirects were down a little bit from their average, but still relatively strong. So
tariffs are an incredible litmus test. Nearly every reasonable person on the left hates them, and nearly every dumbass on the left defends them. I will grudgingly give an exception to actual elected polls in the Rust Belt, but among influencers is undefeated. This appropriate. Hassan is not a fan of free trade. Democrats should not be in favor of free trade. The only thing free trade benefits is capital owners. I mean, it's true. What annoys me, the shit out of me, is that this guy's a third worldist. He's arguing that the global poor are ripping us off while saying his whole thing is protecting the global poor. Wait, what? No, I'm not saying that the global poor are ripping us off. What are these people saying? Do they purposely misunderstand my point? At no point have I defended Donald Trump, by the way. So that's what's really funny. I feel like more people are China pilled after the red nose shit happened. At least they have some stability. We don't have that. Yeah. It's Jeremiah Johnson's a moron. Pay him no mind. He's part of the Armand Domalewski dumbass brigade. Yeah, I mean, founder of CN Liberalism, New Liberals, writing at Infinite Scroll. This person has blocked me. I didn't even know what the fuck this is. So it makes sense that this guy would be. This guy's got a globe on his Twitter username. I'm not surprised that he has, one, the wrong opinion, and two, can't comprehend the things that I'm saying. Why are you always getting blocked? Liberalism is inherently reactionary. They're just, a lot of these like globehead accounts are just basically gay Nazis. You know, when push comes to shove, they openly demonstrate their disdain for the global South, for the working poor of the world, and the working poor in their own countries too.
Not a major change in the auction statistics, but a well-received auction in this case, as was the 10. So that may supply a little more confidence to people in the fixed income markets about foreign demand and overall demand for U.S. Treasuries. There's been some talk that people were backing away from investing in the U.S. I think the equity markets are reflecting what normally happens in these kinds of situations where you have a big turndown. This is what we've seen before, where you get these rallies and then stocks go back down again. Very much the pattern after 2000.
Libs are big mad about your take. They're pancake waffling it to say you support Trump. Tariff equals Trump and Trump equals bad, according to them. I mean, Trump does equal bad. At no point have I defended Donald Trump's tariffs regime. I think I've poured a lot of hours into talking about how fucking stupid Trump's tariff attitude is. You know, stock market is broken. Asmongold doesn't understand Trump tariffs. Republicans cope with Trump tariffs. You see the latest Johnny KGB Harris video? Looks like the US aid was really cut. Yeah. Everything about that monster sickens me. He wants to end 5 billion lives. Even the House Democrats had a take saying tariffs aren't bad, but Trump's not doing them right, and the libs online lost it. Yeah, because the fucking liberals are... Someone trying to community note you? What is this? Your enemy isn't China, it's global capital. China represents 90% of global capital, making it the world's second largest economy. It is also the second in the world in terms of total number of billionaires. This goes back to the same paradigm of, oh, China is capitalist, actually. Okay, why don't we do Chinese-style development here then? No, that would be communist. It's always the same. It's literally the same. I'm like, okay, great. China is capitalist. We're capitalists. Let's do China. They're like, oh, no, that would be communism. Why would we ever do that? That's communism. It's also funny because it's like, it goes back to the same dynamic of like, China is going to collapse any moment now because they're socialist. Okay, China's going to collapse any moment now. They're socialist. They're socialist. Okay, we've decided that China is actually cheating. They're too good. Their socialism is too good for our capitalist system. It's cheating. It's cheating. It's cheating. It's cheating. They're cheating. Okay, how about we cheat? And here, remember when I told you like a lot of quote unquote intelligent PhD having political economy understanding people will consistently talk about China cheating. What they mean when they say China is cheating is that China has a command economy and it is impossible to compete against a command economy. God forbid we have that same thing here in the United States of America. Fuck no, we can't do that because that would harm the interests of capital. This goes back to the argument that I'm making, which is that supranational capital is the most powerful element here. That is the enemy here. It is not China, because if we wanted to truly have a free market, okay, it was a real free market, and China was cleaning out, absolutely destroying us by outcompeting us in the free market, we would look to what they're doing and then implement it here, which would require us to have central planning and be invested in long-term stability, have long-term goals of both internal development and external development. Even the One Belt, One Road initiative in and of itself is a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about. But of course, we don't want we don't want to compete against China. We want to continue the system where the dollar is the reserve currency of the entire globe, where all global trade is done on the dollar. So we still have that level of control, while also simultaneously we want to be able to cut Chinese manufacturing and just rip it away from them, and Chinese development and rip it away from them, because they outcompeted us all at the behest of capital. You cannot talk like this if you were in China right now against the government. You know that, bro. Yes, I know, dude. I know that. I know. What, bro? They literally shoot people in the back of their head execution style if they speak against their government. Y'all want that? The fuck are you talking about? Hey, man, I fantasized about something happening in China that's not happening. Do you want that here? That's so fucking stupid. First of all, I wouldn't be speaking like this if I was in China. I would be a fucking regime-pilled defender of the Communist Party of China in the glorious People's Republic of China. Okay? So, you know, I wouldn't be concerned with the free speech limitations there. That's number one. Number two, as long as I'm here, I do criticize the Chinese government's practices on that front regardless. Except the issue here is, as American hegemony ends on the global stage, we are finding out right now in this very moment that free speech wasn't so fucking free anyway here in the United States of America either. You got ICE literally saying, if you have dangerous ideas crossing into American borders, we will shut it down. Yeah. If you talk about Israel being bad in China, they actually black bag you in the middle of the street and then ship you into a slave colony in El Salvador. Oh, wait, we are doing that. We're doing that right now. Fuck. My bad. That's not China. That's America. But hey, keep coping.
Back to 2001.
Anyway, let's talk about this. Okay? Let's talk about this. You will understand what I've been saying over and over again. When a fucking PhD economist says China is cheating and not playing by the rules of global trade, rules that we have designed, rules that we have designed ourselves. The Western world has designed, America especially. What they mean is China has a command economy and it's impossible to compete against a command economy because they can just fucking heavily subsidize the shit out of their manufacturing in an effort to outcompete capitalist countries.
After it was admitted to the World Trade Organization, China cheated in multiple ways. China continues to subsidize its industries in all kinds of ways. It engages in unfair competition. It does things that look to me at least like dumping. And it's done this for a quarter of a century nearly. What do you do to stop that, to check that kind of behavior of gaming a free trade system if it's not tariffs? Or is there nothing you can do? You just have to live with it?
Can I ask a question? Could every student here who's paying $10,000 or more in tuition raise their hand?
No, we don't have tuition.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. That was the point that I was making. So you have no tuition. Why do you have no tuition? You have no tuition because somehow you have succeeded in mobilizing funds that have enabled you to admit students without paying.
Look at this socialist, by the way. Okay? Look at this fucking socialist, chat. The radical Maoist third worldist Larry H. Summers, former United States Secretary of the Treasury, Harold H. Summers. I just need you to understand. That's fucking Larry Summers saying what he's about to say.
So students get the benefit of an...
We used to subsidize our industries. We do. There are rules for how much you can subsidize your industries technically in global trade. The problem is, or rather, what we do when we subsidize our industries is because they're capitalist enterprise that are not completely maintained and controlled by a command economy. When we subsidize our fucking industries, it surely lowers prices a little bit, but a big chunk of those subsidies still, in one way, shape, or form, end up in the hands of capitalists. That's the problem. It doesn't actually go directly into lowering prices, which is precisely the reason why America turns around and goes, wait a minute, you're not supposed to subsidize to actually cheapen the fucking the output. You can't subsidize shit to make it so that it's incredibly affordable. What are you doing? We subsidize everything, chat. What are you talking about?
Education without paying. Do you think that if the University of Texas or Harvard or Rice called this an unfair practice, because it put them at a competitive disadvantage, that would be a reasonable thing? Or do you think that it's a good thing that you're able to provide free college educations, and it would be even better if more people could provide free college educations? I kind of have the latter view. So if China wants to sell us things at really low prices, and the transaction is we get solar collectors that help make there be less global climate change, or we get batteries that we can put in electric cars, and we send them pieces of paper that we print.
I mean, he's 100% correct about this scheme, by the way. This is the design. This is the design of American-backed global trade. He's just being radically honest about it. That's it. He's not like pro-China by any means. He is not in any way, shape, or form saying that it's a good thing that China is doing this or whatever. He is simply explaining what the system currently looks like, and to constantly fucking cry foul about the subsidies when Chinese affordable manufacturing is the way that we have designed this game. The only problem here is that China has developed into becoming a competitive superpower. That's the issue. If China was still poor, if China was this neoliberal shithole, okay, then we wouldn't have any issues. We'd be like, oh, great. What do you mean? China is marginally improving the living conditions of their working class 0.000001% year over year. That's fantastic. But that's not what happened. Through command economy, through 15-year plans, through rapid urbanization, through rapid development, China was able to become a competitive superpower. That is the issue. They didn't play ball. How dare you? How dare you have a fucking vision? How dare you actually truly work to uplift your citizens? That's unacceptable. That's literally this entire conversation. That's it. The global South is not supposed to develop. The global South is supposed to never become a competitive power in the global stage. That you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to do that as a developing nation. If China was still like India in terms of in terms of its governance, then we would never in a million fucking years complain about China. We'd be like, it's great. It's great. It's awesome. We'd be talking about how bountiful free trade has been for China, as we do to this day about India.
Think that's a good deal for us or a bad deal for us? I kind of think it's a good deal for us. So the idea, the way you frame the question, which is that this is cheating and is there a way to deal with the problem of cheating, I think is largely wrong. It's just like, was it fair to dentists when fluoride water got invented? It was terrible for the dental business. Terrible. Far fewer.
Isn't that the fundamental benefit of being a totalitarian system? You can influence the country for good or bad, unchecked. Yeah, except look at all of the other totalitarian systems that have something very different in comparison to China. Many developing nations have totalitarian systems in one way, shape, or form. And yet, we don't have these same considerations for those totalitarian nations. You are inevitably going to arrive at my conclusion here, okay? Which is what I'm stressing. The only difference between China and the other developing nations, okay, if you want to call it totalitarian, the only difference in and of itself with China in comparison to other places is that China has a command economy and a vision for development that they've actually followed through on. That's it. And they've seen much success in this process. It always goes back to the same dynamic. In China, the government controls the corporations. In America, the corporations control the governments. One is on a downtrend. The other one is on a massive upswing. Which do you prefer?
Cavities. Far less for dentists to do. Was it terrible when electric light got invented? Terrible for the candle makers. So there's this thing that lets people buy things for lower cost. Should you say that's terrible? I think the whole way of framing the question is wrong. Now, I'm making it simpler than it is. There is an issue. It's called, which economists call predatory pricing, which is the idea.
Yeah, when Amazon does it, there's nothing that we can do, and it's actually good. When China does it, that's not good. And he's right. It is predatory pricing, for the record. But under normal market, free market conditions, you're supposed to, as a fucking government, okay, you're the American government. What do you mean China is doing predatory pricing to you? Are you insane? Subsidize our fucking industries then, and also ensure that our industries also have a race to the bottom in terms of prices, not in terms of wages, because you can also do that as well. You just have to drop the profit incentive out of the equation. Nationalize our key manufacturing industries, nationalize our extraction industries, and also in the process, control your economy. Actually control it. Do not let your economy be captured by the whims of the market for profit seekers that will always care about profit above all else. But we won't do that. That's never going to happen. We'll just keep coping and saying, look, China is so poor. The average working condition in China is significantly worse than America. Okay, adjust that to 20 years ago for the average Chinese worker versus now, and then look at American average worker living conditions and living standards 20 years ago versus now, 30 years ago versus now, 40 years ago versus now. Where the fuck was China 50 years ago versus where they're at now? Look at America and the average worker in the United States of America 50 fucking years ago. And I don't mean like the bounties of affordable treats. I mean like literally being able to purchase shit, the purchasing power that you have, upward social mobility 50 years ago versus now. China doesn't nationalize their firms and industries. They create a series of firms and make them knife fight to survive. Yeah, except it doesn't matter because ultimately the government still controls all of it. So when push comes to shove and there's something that they've done that is annoying to them, or they've destabilized the markets and have moved away from the vision of the government, they fucking knife the company. Evergrande is a great example of this. Look at what happened with Evergrande. They are de facto nationalized. That's why I say China uses capitalism as a sleeve, okay? Also, isn't it funny? Or is it Evergreen? Evergrande, isn't it? I keep fucking up the name of the goddamn real estate company. Yeah, no, it's Evergrande. I said it right. It's not Evergreen. Yeah, they use capitalism as a glove, okay? They wear capitalism. They basically present themselves as a nation with markets, a nation that cares about capitalist competition. And in certain instances, they use market conditions as well for competition. It's just funny to consider that everything that you say in America, like normal concepts that you think about here in the United States of America that you've normalized in your mind, you have a very scary word for it over there, okay? We have slavery in our prison systems. They have gulags. We have normal free market competition. They have knife fights. Think about that. It's always, even if they're doing the same exact shit that we're doing or doing things at a much lower degree, we greatly elevate and they have propaganda. We have PR. I don't ask you to, immediately adopt the framework that I'm presenting to you. Immediately adopt the framework that I'm presenting to you. I want you to simply reconsider. I want you to reconsider. I want you to reconsider how you look at these things, okay? Yeah, we have industry leaders in the form of billionaires. They have oligarchs. That's it. I want you to reconsider the framing that you have adopted.
That somebody will sell things at a really low price, then they'll drive all their competitors out of business, and then they'll jack the price way up. And so if you thought that all of this was sort of setting us up for the kill in terms of total dependence on China, that would be an argument that might lead you to want to have a policy. It's pretty hard to make that case with respect to the vast number of things we're importing. China is only one source of them. If the price did get jacked up, our producers could re-enter the market. In the entire history of economics, there have been almost no examples documented of where predatory pricing actually happened. There's an argument you can make that is about dependence, perhaps with respect to really sensitive technologies. We don't want to depend on China because then they might cut us off and their government might take control, and that might be bad for our national security. And there are a lot of things to do about that. We should stockpile more things than we do. There are probably some areas like semiconductors where we should be investing in developing domestic capacity. But that's not an argument that because they're making something available cheap, it's cheating and you should have a policy. So I'd reject the entire way in which you framed the question.
Actually, what year is this video from? Probably recent. Thanks to the dollar reserve status, to quote Summers, a rhetorical question. If China wants to sell us things at really low price in the transaction is we get solar collectors and we get batteries that we can put in electric cars and we send them pieces of paper that we print. Do you think that's a good deal for us or a bad deal for us? Characterizing this as cheating, like Summer rightly says, should be rejected entirely. At the end of the day, who's more cheated? The party doing the hard work of producing goods at very low prices? Who is this guy? Just some random squishy socialist, dude. The video's from yesterday. Just a famous Maoist by the name of Larold H. Summers. Did you hear Trump isn't removing the Israel tariff? Trump is off the leash? My goat. He's doing BDS to Israel. That's right. He said he's going to dismantle the Zionist entity. My king. Comrade Summers, dude. Anyway, this framing of China as the good guy here makes no sense at all. What are you even talking about? China using capitalism as a sleeve? China is communist, period. Now that I think, what would help make a better analogy is if I pretend to be capitalism and you pretend to be China and you could use me as a sleeve. I mean, what? Who said that? Not me. Okay, Jesus Christ, Chad. You know, jerk off. Holy shit. Politico reports that Trump is appending his trade team. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is now taking the lead with Peter Navarro sidelined and Howard Lutnick recast as the bad cop. Uh-oh. SpaghettiOs.
Specifically around China. Megan.
Hey, David, absolutely. I just got off the phone with a White House official, and they need to clarify that the new effective tariff rate against China.
Chatter's branded law. China has hardly been truly communist since the Deng era. Yeah, I know, dude. Yes, you have a real method for a transitional socialist state. You just haven't implemented it yet here in the United States of America. But fucking look alive, everybody. When Chatter H. Tom PK23 implements and institutes real transitional socialism in his grand vision, everyone will say, that's it. That's it. Any day now, he's going to bring it. I'm not saying that's necessary, bro, bad, bro, damn. No one thinks China is a fucking communist state. What are you talking about? China is not a communist state. China is, in their words, a transitional socialist state that is reacting to market forces, global trade, and the material conditions that exist currently. Also, learning from the mistakes of the USSR, former transitional socialist states that have perished. Conservatives do? No, they don't, because when push comes to shove, everyone will literally present how bountiful capitalism has been to China. They literally will say, they will turn around and say, capitalism has uplifted billions of people, eradicated global poverty. That's China. They're only talking about Chinese statistics. Remove China from the equation, and the global south across the board is not better off than they were prior to the uplifting. How can the Communist Party not be communist? There has literally never been a singular communist party in the history of communism that has actually been able to implement communism. That's not a thing. Communism is supposed to be the ultimate goal to arrive at. It is not what is happening right now. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, I know. The French Commune. Okay, shut up. We're not talking about that. This is not a no true Scotsman argument either. This is just literally the delusions of the people on the opposing side of the argument. I have no further questions. Okay. This isn't like cope to be like true communism hasn't been tried or implemented. It's like the Chinese government doesn't say they've implemented communism. They say they're a transitional socialist state that works within the current confines of global finance capital with Chinese characteristics.
China effective today is actually 145%, not 120.
Like, yeah, we have a communist party here. We have multiple communist parties here in the United States of America. Do we have communism? No.
5%, as they told us yesterday. This is not a new shift. This is based, I want to make clear, on a close reading of the executive order. I have it here. When they amended their executive order yesterday, they changed the rate, the reciprocal rate, so-called, from 84% to 125%. But that comes on top of the fentanyl rate that was already in place this term of 20% against China. So a White House official confirmed to me it is correct to add those numbers together, making the new rate that President Trump has added in tariffs against China so far this term to 145%. A big jump there from where we thought we were even yesterday and the start of the week as well. These numbers just keep increasing. And as you guys know, you do have to add that 145% to any tariffs that were already in place before President Trump took office this term. That's the Section 301 tariffs from his first term, as well as anything else that was already in place at baseline. But now the new rate, when you add all these figures together.
I find it really funny that Trump just like flies off the handle and will just make new numbers up. I respect that. I mean, it's good to be the king, you know? Just fuck it. YOLO. Make up new shit. Be like, yep, 300. I've decided 300% tariffs. I've decided 400% tariffs. Respect. Bigger number, bigger tariff. He's killing it.
For this term that they've added against China is 145% on Chinese imports.
Why do you support moving manufacturing to America but not support Trump's tariffs? I don't know, because I'm not a fucking moron. Because if you don't build a manufacturing base here in the United States of America, there is no trade to protect. There is no manufacturing to protect in that process, don't you think?
Imports. Guys.
Megan, a very important clarification. Thank you for that. It does make you wonder, yeah, because I think the broad assumption was 125% included, perhaps, the 20% already from fentanyl. I asked this question earlier of Eamon, but I'd love to ask it of you as well. In terms of exemptions, we were talking to an analyst earlier, of course, about Apple, where it may really be so important for a company like that to get an exemption, given how many iPhones are made in China. Do we have any expectations and/or do you have any reporting around what may or may not happen when it comes to that?
The best that we know is that the president said yesterday he was willing to consider some exemptions for some companies, but he didn't want to give any specifics on what it would require. So we don't know anything further than that. We know that Tim Cook has been in touch with this White House, in touch with this president. He's been down to Mar-a-Lago, been trying to win some of those exemptions here, as have other companies. But we just don't know yet. What I will say, despite just how high this China tariff is, now even higher than we initially thought, there is some more optimism now because companies like Apple that have production in other countries as well, they can at least move around. But I will say that, you know,
every number is made up. The tariff number is made up. It keeps increasing. The number of investment is totally made up. Every other day, Donald Trump will be like, we have gotten $5 quintillion from Apple. Tim Apple called me yesterday, said, we're donating $5 quintillion. Numbers like you've never heard. Numbers you've never seen before. Everything's computer. Every day, billionaires are calling me saying, Mr. President, I'm going to give you $7 trillion. That's right.
there was softer language from the president yesterday that at least he's considering exemptions. We didn't get that before, and if passed is
1 million countries have called me. Countries you've never heard of. Lesotho. They called me. They said, Penguin Island. They called me. They said, Mr. President, the penguins are reeling with the tariffs. We will buy American. The penguins want to drive F-150s, Mr. President. Numbers you've never heard of. Cambodia. They called me. They said, Mr. President, please bomb us more. We love the bombs. We love it. We will buy the bombs that you will use on us, Mr. President.
His prologue in the first term, we did get some, so I would expect a lot more to come on that front.
I mean, a few things. I mean, the rate is so...
The duality of chat. This terrible impression is part of why I dislike you personally. Your Trump impression is one of my favorites, Lamau. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the 22-month subscriber.
Gargantuan compared to, first of all, the other tariff rates that we have and everything else. It makes me think that they're bringing them to the table to a deal, because at some point it's just unsustainable to have trade this way. And then their tariff rates now on our exports into China are what? Above 80%?
84, right?
They're at 84%, yep. And they're doing all these other things. The TikTok deal, for example, is on ice. The president acknowledged that yesterday. The companies that have all been added to the...
Yeah. Man, dude, this man is going to make everyone under the age of 35 a fucking Maoist. Okay? I swear to God. One, destroying global trade, but simply trying to fuck China over, causing a massive inflationary crisis, and then simultaneously taking away one of the major treats that China has given to everyone, especially under the age of 35. Yo, the children will rise up as fucking Maoists, dude. Play the song. What? I don't know what this song is, but I don't think this is... Is that in French? Yes. This is from a Godard satire about idiot leftists in France. La chinoise a plutôt à la chinoise un film en train de se faire. The Chinese, or rather, in the Chinese manner, a film is a making, commonly referred simply as La Chinoise, is a French political docufiction film written and directed by Jean-Luc Godard about a young group of Maoist activists in Paris. La Chinoise is a loose adaptation of Fyodor Dostoevsky's 1872 novel Demons, also known as Le Possessed. Yes, everybody knows what this is. I don't know what this is. I am unfortunately a brute. Le brute. Le chinois. La chinois. Plutôt à la chinois un film en train de se faire. Your French accent violates the Geneva Convention.
Blacklist, the entities list. I saw a headline this morning that China's buying some soybeans from Brazil. That's a hit to U.S. farmers. So China can do a lot more. I agree with you that I think with rates this high, you would think there have to be negotiations, and potentially we'll see those in the coming days. But I've been kind of amazed over the past few days just how little conversation has been going on between the U.S. and China. It doesn't seem like there's any sort of dialogue at this point. We've seen the tit for tat escalating without the leaders, at least, getting on a phone call.
Xinjiang getting incredible amounts of TV time. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Zhan coming out once again swinging. The United States is still imposing tariffs on China, he says, and China is firmly opposed to such bullying. China will absolutely not accept pressure, threats, and blackmail. This is what he said yesterday and the day prior. That is not the right way to deal with China. If the U.S. really wants to talk, it should show an attitude of equality, respect, and reciprocity. If the United States ignores the interests of the two countries and the international community and insists on fighting a tariff war and a trade war, China will certainly accompany it to the end. The United States, driven by selfish interests, has weaponized tariffs as a means of exerting maximum pressure and seeking unilateral benefits. This severely infringes upon the legitimate rights and interests. I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think that J.D. Vance calling Chinese peasants, calling the entire Chinese manufacturing base like peasants, did a real number. That was definitely the wrong move. I'm serious. I feel like that's one of those things where, you know, you're fucking up the bag. You think you can behave in this undiplomatic manner because you're sitting atop this throne, but you can dookie on Ukraine all day, every day. That's a very different equation than saying that to China. Especially China, considering its history, especially considering the motivations. It got people here in Europe angry, and that's weird because we racist as fuck. Constitutes a grave violation of the World Trade Organization rules, seriously undermines the rules-based multilateral trading system, imposes a major threat to the stability of the global economic order. It is a blatant act that defies international norms and runs counter to the entire world. Speaking of cutting the throat, the U.S. threats and blackmail against the rest of the world with tariffs is a real attempt to choke the throat of other countries and bully them into making a compromise or concessions. The relationship between China and Spain is a vital component of the relations between China and the EU. Last year, the total trade between China and Spain topped U.S. $50 billion, and China and Spain's exports to China grew by 4.3%. In recent years, the bilateral cooperation on the new energy industry has boosted green and low-carbon development. China's response to U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying that Spain is getting closer to China is like cutting your own throat. That's what Scott Bessent said, and this is their response. The two countries maintain communication in the multilateral cooperation and jointly uphold the international system. With the UN at its core and the WTO-centered multilateral trading system, just like the friendly ties between China and other countries, the cooperation between China and Spain always serves as a driving force for both countries' economic growth and delivers tangibly for the two peoples and contributes to world stability and development. Europe stands with China. Eurasia will rise. Don't you dare call us U.S. vassals. We hate you guys much more than China. Yeah, you, as the average European citizen, might, but your leadership demonstrates a totally different set of standards. Okay? This is what you must understand. Although we have this notion where European countries that are supposed to maintain this liberal democracy, the attitude towards liberal democracy, that they are supposed to protect liberal democracy. Liberal democracy, I think, has its limitations, clearly. I think more and more people will come to that conclusion that your leadership actually does not represent your values. As contradictions heighten, you will recognize that you are not all that different from a Gulf nation, for example. You are not all that different, that simply liberal democracy has been a lie. Here in the United States of America, the only thing that stops us from recognizing this reality is affordable treats, is treat affordability. As long as there is seemingly the feeling that conditions are getting better because treats are more accessible than ever before, and we can keep purchasing cheap TVs year over year, we forget that a lot of our material needs are not met by our government, regardless of how much we want them. And I think this is a reality that other countries will soon have to come to terms with as well. The interests of the public are not met by the so-called public servants that you elect into positions of power. All right, let's look at Chamath talking about or actually, you know what? Before we look at Chamath, I want to talk about Adin Ross, who a couple days prior was reeling from the impact that this Trump tariff initiative had on his stocks. One day of the market turning green, and Adin Ross has a different attitude overall.
The tariff shit is a really good thing. All these other countries got tariffs on us. Be patient. Let him fix the country. The country's sick. Let him take his medicine, and the country's gonna get fixed.
How is this any different than what like Asmongold says? You know what I mean? How is this any different than what all of the smart economists say that are invested in defending Donald Trump? All you got to do is just repeat what Donald Trump is saying. That's it. The only difference is Aiden doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. That's the only difference. The output is still the same.
Like, you guys see the stock market? Boom, green, just like that. Like, it's like, come on, bro. Like, I'm just being real with you guys, bro. You understand why he's a good president? Because no president's ever dropped nuts like that. Like, bro, that's why we're respected, bro. Motherfuckers can't bitch us around and punk us. I'm being real. Stop. We all voted for him. Believe in our president, bro. Believe in our president. You don't gotta like me. You don't even gotta like Trump. But he's your president. So respect him, bro. He's in office. All right? It's really true. The tariff shit's good as fuck. All these other countries do it to us. Like,
he has absolutely no idea what the fuck he's saying here. And I wanna maintain my position on this. Many people that try to go out and defend Donald Trump's actions here, they also don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They are also completely oblivious. They're just simply repeating what they have heard. What is this? Dave Chappelle bringing Chinese jobs back to America? Let's hear what this is.
Motherfuckers' ideas sound like high people ideas. Like he doesn't think these things through before he tells us. He just tells us what he's thinking as soon as it occurs to him. This shit sounds nuts. I'm gonna go to China and I'm gonna get those jobs from China and bring them back here to America. For what, nigga? So iPhones can be $9,000? Leave that job in China where it belongs. None of us want to work that hard. What the fuck is he thinking? I want to wear Nikes. I don't want to make them shits. What the fuck are you doing? Stop trying to give us Chinese jobs.
Jessica Betancourt is the president and CEO of Clem's in Massachusetts, which prides itself as being locally owned and operated since 1949. And Beth Beneke, she's the CEO of Busy Baby out of Minnesota. Her company designs and manufactures baby products. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Your stories are very important to tell here and to have your voices out there in the midst of this conversation. Jessica, your store was founded by your grandfather 75 years ago. You sell a range of everything. I mean, it touches almost every product SKU you could think of. What do the tariffs, the 90-day pause on some tariffs, and now the even higher rate being put on Chinese goods, what does it mean for you and your business?
So yesterday, before the 90-day pause, I was pretty much expecting just about all of our 70,000 SKUs to have probably price increases of some level. Even US-made goods a lot of times have components that come from somewhere else.
Oh my God, you guys are such fucking babies. Yes, dude. Yes, the S's are cutting deep. Yes. God damn.
With the 90-day pause, it kind of kicks the can down the road. It doesn't solve that question. It just makes that timeline for Q3 and 4 that's really important to us. It's going to make that timeline shorter because we don't know what's going to happen in 90 days. As far as the China tariff being increased, we know that there's significant amount of SKUs. I'm going to estimate probably 30+% of those SKUs that we carry in some various categories that are really heavy in China specific SKUs.
So remember when
that are going to just see massive increases, and we just aren't quite sure how we're going to handle all of this.
Yeah, not quite sure seems to be the only honest way to answer any of this for anyone. I mean, and Beth, you just recently landed a deal with Walmart and Target. I mean, that's huge for any small business.
I want to know who they voted for as well. Just, you know, I'm conducting a study. I'm conducting a study in my mind, and I would really appreciate it if I got this information. I wonder if they'll say.
Business owner. The White House.
Yeah, I know the Joe Rogan, Douglas Murray debate. I will be watching that for sure. There's 2 videos that I'm going to watch on Israel. One is the Chris Kunzler video. He's great. He's a great TikToker, Middle Eastern studies, white boy with a Middle Eastern studies degree. He did one on like the liberal Zionism or the confused Zionism of Ethan Klein. There's also the Douglas Murray, Dave Smith debate over Israel. I've talked about Dave Smith already, you know. Whoa, what the fuck is going on? Why did my viewership just fucking jump up to like 46K and then down to 40K? What the fuck just happened? That's weird. Am I getting freaking botted, dude? Sorry, my fan showed up real quick. Yeah. Am I getting view botted? Auk already tweeted about this. What do you mean? You said a slop tuber's name? No, I don't think that's what happened. Soros is molding in the Soros is making it rain in the chat. Let's go. Let's go, Georgie. Is the DNC Andes? This was something I wanted to ask. Is you want to bring Chinese manufacturing to the U.S.? How would that be viable when U.S. labor costs 5x China's? No, I'm not saying that. Okay, let's just continue with this, and then
I say that in the context of
it.
how your world has shifted overnight. And what we're hearing from the administration is a celebration of the president's moves here. First the tariffs, and now describing the pause as as a stroke of kind of strategic economic genius. We've seen investors seem to be breathing a sigh of relief. Are you breathing a sigh of relief?
No, not at all. The news yesterday almost feels like the nail in the coffin for us.
Tell me why.
How do you see your live viewership numbers? How do you see your live viewership numbers? Like, and how much of it is like active viewers versus inactive viewers, like not signed in? What's the website? I want to look at that real quick. I want to see something real quick. No, not chatters. That's not what I mean, I guess that is a number. Yeah, chatter count is 30,000 right now, but the viewership count shot up from 37K to 41K all of a sudden. And at first it went in, and at first it was like, it went in from, at first it was, it's weird because Asmongold dipped from 53K to 41K like instantly. And I went up to 46K and then dipped back down to like, yeah, see? Actually, never mind. My user to viewer ratio is still the same, it seems. But this hasn't actually kicked in yet. This happened too recently for the website to, yeah, and then it fucking shot back up. It's shooting up again. And now it's at 45K. What the fuck is going on? What? Now it went back to 37K? What is happening? The fuck's going on, dude? The market is reacting to the tariffs on stream? Yeah. It's because you mentioned Asmongold and Aiden? No, that's not the reason. Probably AWS load balancing. The viewer economy is volatile, just like our markets are, chat. All right, let's get back to the matter at hand here. I don't know what the fuck just took place here. I keep jumping from like 37 to 45, boom, 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 over and over again. All right.
I have products in China right now produced, ready to ship. They were supposed to get on a boat yesterday and come to America. And I can't ship them because what would have cost me maybe $30,000 with a reasonable tariff now is going to cost me almost $200,000. And I have to have that money when the products get to custom.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's definitely something wonky with the view count because we just looked at Asmongold a second ago. He had 43K or 40K. Now he has 53K. Mine still says 45K, but on my dashboard, it shows 37K. So clearly now it's back up to 45K. What the fuck is going on? Okay, there's definitely something going on, something happening. Download the extension. I don't know what extension that is, but I don't care. But it's just like, obviously the numbers like shooting up and down like that means that there is either someone that's like botting, or it could be like a server side problem on the Twitch end that's not showing the actual numbers, something along those lines. But anyway, let's continue.
And I don't have that, nothing close to that. It's not even reasonable. So I have to leave my goods in China until I figure out some other direction. But what that means is when I run out of stock in 2 to 3 months, I no longer have products to sell and no more revenue coming in, which means I can't pay my bills, can't pay my employees. And
why are you using bots? Are you fucking stupid? You think I know how to fucking bot? You think many big streamers are getting exposed for review botting? What do bot providers will do is bot random big channels to blur the lines and seed doubt. See everyone is botting. Yeah.
everything I have, all of my debt, I have my house leveraged. We have 5 employees. My house is leveraged against our loans for our growth into Walmart and Target. I can't pay those bills. I don't even want to think about it.
Beth, how real is this threat and risk with this? Just, I mean, it is just pure uncertainty for you right now. I mean, thinking that you only have 4 months of inventory, that is terrifying.
Yeah, and it's hard to make a decision. You know, we had an idea yesterday after the announcement of, well, maybe we can export to Australia, repackage the products, and then re-import them from there. But because policy changes every 36 hours or so, I don't want to make that decision and make that move only for something else to change in just a couple more days. I'm paralyzed. I can't even make a decision right now. And I'm not the only one. There's thousands of us, small businesses in this exact same position.
Yeah, I mean, Beth, you can't see it, but Jessica's nodding her head at the very same moment. Because, Jessica, one of the stated goals, and I think both of you can speak to this, Beth is speaking to it already, is the stated goals of this trade war was to bring more manufacturing back to the United States, have people buy more things from within the United States. Can you do that?
I can speak to that now because that's how I spent most of my day yesterday was.
Right.
Yeah, but I want both of you to respond. Yeah, go ahead, Beth.
I mean, these over
One of them apparently in the Guardian article said that she did not vote for Donald Trump. So we know that at least.
Tariffs just don't even give us a chance to be a realistic pathway for us. For me, I would have to create, if I even found a factory in the US willing to do it that had the right machinery, it would take 4 to 6 months to get the tools made to even start production. And that alone would cost me over $200,000. I don't have the time or money to do that in this moment. We don't have any time to make any adjustments.
Jessica?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think Beth is absolutely correct. There are thousands of other small businesses, whether they're manufacturers or retailers, that do a specific category.
Look. This looks like a shoot up, dude. Look, sorry. I'm going back to this thing. This is so stupid, but it is like something that people are talking about, but something literally happened in the last, like, something should have happened in the last like minute or last 10 minutes where Asmongold went down to 41,000 viewers. His active users stayed the same, and I went up. My active users stayed the same. It's either like a bug on the Twitch end or someone just like moved bots around or some shit. You know what I mean? Your VOD views are fucked too because you only had 7.6K after your stream was over. No, that's normal. It doesn't immediately show the real number, and then it'll go up to, by the end of like in a couple hours it'll go up to like 400K or whatever my VOD numbers look like. For all these sites report where you see on the client from Twitch, they are the source of truth. What do you mean? China tuned into your stream? Yeah, looking at it, bro, we got at least 10,000. Okay, that's what it feels like. Looking at it, bro, we got at least 10,000. All right, let's continue.
I'm super fortunate. I carry products in a wide range of categories, and that helps me in a scenario like this. But if you have that baby store, that toy store, or you are a manufacturer that is bringing your product in from China, you are facing some really difficult decisions right now. And there is just not a pathway for everyone to pivot and change and magically create this manufacturing that doesn't exist today.
Yeah. I could talk to you guys for hours. I really appreciate you coming on and putting voice to this, because it's very clear. Consumers are facing the hit, and you are in it with your customers all together in this moment of uncertainty. And I am really sorry that you're in the middle of this and facing this, but thank you for coming on and talking to us about it. I really appreciate it. Karen, if markets are breathing a sigh of relief, so are Republicans, you would have to think. I mean, as Richard Quest had put it, this 90-day window that they have now is exactly where they should have began in trying to renegotiate trade deals. With that in mind, how should Democrats handle this?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, I think as the clip that you were...
Why are we saying fuck small business? Am I stupid or something? Can you help me understand? I don't know who this we is. I'm not saying that. Small businesses are the #1 propaganda tool of mainstream media. Okay? Where mainstream outlets will always talk about small businesses because directionally small businesses and big businesses are aligned, because they're still capital owners, but small businesses can be seen as like, you know, the mom and pop shops in your neighborhood, the people that you actually do know. So it makes the entire concept of defending free enterprise infinitely more personable. That's why everyone will always say small businesses are the backbone of American economy. You know what I mean? And not to say that like small businesses are bad, fuck them. I'm not saying that at all. Not every single one of these businesses are alike. Many of them are also owned and operated by the same person, right? It represents the American dream. Exactly. All of this stuff. So the reason why they're talking about the impact of small businesses is because it's infinitely more boring for CNN to have a guy from BlackRock come in and be like, well, you know, we're invested in a lot of companies that actually do business with China, and it's ruining our stock portfolio. Like that's the reason why they ask small businesses.
You first played about the small business owners. The markets, we may be in slightly better territory and we have this 90 days, but Americans are still very concerned. I mean, the chaos and pain of the last week or so is still very much still in the system in terms of what people are feeling. And as we saw last weekend, people are already angry about DOGE. They're angry about a number of things that the president has done. So I think this is a moment for Democrats where we need to galvanize the anger, the fear, the concerns that Americans have. And
I'm a small business owner. We are not aligned with big business, in my opinion. I actually have to work. I'm not a bank / can just buy back stock. Yes, there are obviously differences between like what big businesses and small businesses can do, and not all small businesses are alike with one another. That's why I said many are just like owned and operated by the same person. It's just someone asked me why CNN uses small businesses as a reason, as a way to talk about business overall. And that's just what it is. It's just a way for CNN to talk about business across the board, but in an infinitely more personable fashion.
Number one, make it clear, Republicans are doing this. If Republicans in Congress had stood up to Trump last week, we could have avoided some of the worst of what we saw last Friday, where he's golfing and, it felt like America's economy was exploding. And so I think it's really an important, and it's usually, it's hard sometimes to delineate between the two parties on different issues, but Americans trust Democrats when it comes to things like protecting health care, protecting, a number of the critical services we know are potentially on the chopping block in the budget that's going to get voted on, or the blueprint today. And so I think this is a moment where they can really frame, we're for economic sanity. This president and this Republican Party are for chaos and pain, and they're not being honest with you about what it's really going to take to bring manufacturing jobs back.
Well, I did want to play what we're hearing from business owners, small business owners, because I just spoke with two of them last hour, and the way they talk about what.
I work for a small business, and they still definitely care about capital accumulation at the expense of their workers. They're just not as detached as shareholders. Yes. I agree with that assessment.
Just the uncertainty of this moment has meant for them is very real. Listen to this.
The news yesterday almost feels like the nail in the coffin for us.
Busy baby. Tell me why.
I have products in China right now produced, ready to ship. They were supposed to get on a boat yesterday and come to America. And I can't ship them because what would have cost me maybe $30,000 with a reasonable tariff now is going to cost me almost $200,000, and I have to have that money when the products get to customs, and I don't have that. Nothing close to that. It's not even reasonable.
She says she's got 4 months of inventory, and then she might be out. She might be wiped out.
Yeah.
What is that message? What is the message in that to the White House and politicians on both sides of the aisle here?
Well, that message is really clear. I don't know that Donald Trump is very moved by these kinds of stories. He should be for politics. But when it comes to the economy and politics, they're both a confidence game. And if you've got folks like these small business owners, I don't know, they might have voted for Donald Trump, but now they have this economic uncertainty. And that uncertainty affects consumer confidence. And it impacts political confidence in a party. Do these people know what they're doing? And if he can be this erratic, this impulsive, and when is the end of that? I don't think we've seen the end of tariffs. I think you're going to feel those ramifications politically and economically.
That's a really, really interesting way of putting it. It's great to see you, Essie. It's great to see you, Karen. Thank you very much.
President Trump's trade war with China could have a big impact on one of America's most successful exports, the Hollywood blockbuster. China has demanded censorship of American movies before, but now there are reports of a possible ban. Carter Evans is in Los Angeles. Carter, good morning.
Vlad, good morning. For years, China has been a vital market for Hollywood. Now, although the country restricts American films, one industry expert says the average U.S. film makes about 10% of its gross from the Chinese market. But now that already fragile relationship could have a ripple effect around the world.
They want me to fight the chicken?
At the box office, a Minecraft movie wasn't just a blockbuster here in the U.S., it also topped the charts in China last weekend. A financial success for Hollywood that could soon become another victim of President Trump's trade war.
A couple of prominent bloggers who are connected to the main party in China suggested that China might consider putting blocks on the Hollywood films that do get release in China.
Sharon Waxman is editor-in-chief of The Wrap, which covers Hollywood's reliance on international ticket sales.
It only works as a global business. So if you look at the box office, well over half of the receipts.
What is everybody saying? Chicken jockey, flint and steel? Guys, I don't play Minecraft. I don't know these fucking Minecraft memes. What are you saying? They're all 35 years old. The average age in this fucking chat is 30 plus. Stop LARPing like you're goddamn Zoomer or Gen Alpha. You old farts. Get some culture? I refuse. The movie is crap. It's literally made for fucking babies. Are you a baby? No. If the answer is no, then it's not for you. The movie is not for you. It is for babies. Calm down. I mean, chicken jockey or whatever, having experiencing a moment of joy is one thing. I don't really give a shit about that. Have fun, I guess. But fake gamer, I am a fake gamer. We all aren't ancient like you, Unc.
The revenue that comes in on movies comes from countries that are not the United States.
Last year, Godzilla Kong made more money in China than anywhere else in the world, including the U.S. Should the big studios be concerned?
Yes, they should be concerned.
Monique White is executive vice president at California Pictures, a distributor of independent films. She says studios losing revenue from such a massive market could impact production in the future.
That means their budgets are going to have to go down because they're not going to see that money coming out of China. And if what happens in China is going to happen in Europe and in Australia and any other countries, those budgets are going to have to get squeezed even more.
So this is a film trade war now.
Kind of. Right?
It's just the latest headache for an industry still trying to recover from back-to-back labor strikes and a nearly 2-year shutdown due to COVID. And now there's threat of a recession.
What people in Hollywood worry about is that there is inevitably going to be some pullback. People will go to the movies less if they were going. They might have one less streaming service.
Now, the sources who first reported this, they're very well connected in China's media establishment, but it's not clear when or even if these retaliatory measures will take effect. But if they do, it could drive the industry that's still reeling from the pandemic into more film production overseas to cut costs. Gail?
Sounds like something else to worry about. Thank you very much, Carter.
We had a big day yesterday. There'll always be transition difficulty, but in history, it was the biggest day in history, the markets. So we're very, very happy with the way the country's running. We're trying to get the world to treat us fairly.
Mr. President, can you give us a reaction to today's stock market drop and also give us a sense of the next steps with China?
Well, I haven't seen it because I've been here for 2.5 hours, so I'll be seeing it. I think Scott went out. Scott, you want to have a statement on that?
Sure. Look, the up 2, down 1 is not a bad ratio, or up 10, down 5. And I think, as we have talked about, as we go through the queue and settle with these countries who are going to bring us their best offers, we will end up in a place of great certainty over the next 90 days on tariffs. But we had very good inflation numbers today. Oil's down. We had a successful bond market, so I don't see anything unusual today.
And next steps for China, sir?
Well, we'll see what happens with China. We would love to be able to work a deal. They've really taken it.
Oh my God. He literally, dude, every day that China doesn't call him is a day where he's getting increasingly sadder. I was joking when I said I think he loves Xi and did all this to get his attention, but goddamn, dude. He's like, why won't Xi call me? Why won't Xi call me back? Call me, Xi. I did this all for you, Xi. Please pick up the phone, Xi.
Advantage of our country for a long period of time. They've ripped us off beyond anybody. Nobody will have great respect for President Xi. He's been, in a true sense, he's been a friend of mine for a long period of time. And I think that we'll end up working out something that's very good for both countries. I look forward to it.
Mr. President, China retaliated today by reducing the number of American films that can be shown there. What's your reaction to them now targeting cultural exports from the United States?
I think I've heard of worse things.
First country coming to action.
God, he's such a fucking dumbass, dude. Yeah, Hollywood, it's gay and woke, right? It's never the massive industry that employs like fucking hundreds of thousands of people that is an incredibly important part of the American economy. So stupid. These guys literally just think Hollywood gay and woke. It's all those libtard actors making millions of dollars. I hate this. I hate this meta so much.
Well, I think it's very close, but we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this all in one day. If we can't make the deal that we want to make, or we have to make, or that's good for both parties, it's got to be good for both parties. And then we go back to where we were.
Did you miss the Trump trade? The insider group chat we were all invited to. Guys, I don't know if you saw this. There was a huge opportunity to make some money because the president front ran the president. He says on Truth Social at April 9th at 8:37 a.m. This is a great.
You want to hear something? Want to know what my liberal tinfoil hat blue anon conspiracy is? I think he leaked it so that his buddies could not get hit with he leaked it on Truth Social so that his buddies that actually engaged in insider trading would not get hit with insider trading, so they could be like, what do you mean? We said it's a great time to buy. Some people listened.
Time to buy. Now, this is at all-time, at least in recent memory, lows for the stock market. The stock market's bottomed out, all because of the fears of tariffs that the president implemented. So he tweets this. You're wondering, what is he talking about? Well, 3 hours later, we got this. Based on the lack of respect that China has shown to the world's markets, I hereby am raising the tariff to charge to China by the United States to 125% effective immediately, saying that he's going to pause for 90 days the rest of the world, sending the rest of the world skyrocketing. These are U.S. markets here. The rest of the world is up as well. The markets have ripped, meaning if you listen to Trump, front-running Trump, you had a huge opportunity to buy. I mean, he told you. It's a great time to buy, and he was right. I mean, obviously, he knew what was going to happen. Now, so that was the Trump trade, art of the deal. It's all part of the plan, mastermind, art of the deal. I will say, actually, there was a guy who knew before it, a guy who has been treated very unfairly, if I have to say so. That's Walter Bloomberg. I don't know if you guys know about this. There have been a lot of think pieces, a lot of news made about this guy because he, on Monday, said Trump is considering a 90-day pause in tariffs for all countries except for China. Now, as we know, that came true, but he said it on Monday that Trump was considering this, and the White House came out and said, no, this is fake news. This is not real. And as a result, a bunch of pieces got made about this guy, basically saying...
To be fair, no, that's not how this works. They absolutely misunderstood the reaction that the Trump admin had and immediately went along with it to be first to market.
Saying, hey, how fake news about tariffs on Elon Musk's X shifted trillions in the market. Anyone can really say anything on the internet and the people will just believe it. But was he wrong? I think ultimately he had the Trump trade before anyone else, that it was going to be paused. And actually, so I kind of feel bad for this guy. I had to make a little point to say he was redeemed. Now, he might be as surprised as anyone else. It's unclear whether even he realized that he was ultimately right. It's unclear whether maybe the White House saw the market moving in favor of that and just decided to go with that. But, I mean, it's exactly right. There's a 90-day pause on tariffs except for China. I will say, there are still...
No, he's not right. Tariffs still remain at 10% for everybody.
Still tariffs, though. There still are the 10% tariffs, and the 90-day pause, really, that's all it is. I mean, it's not clear. Some people are saying that tariffs are over. This is all just part of a move to save face. But it's not ultimately clear. What is clear is some are saying that this is the art of the deal. This is how it works, guys. This is all part of the plan, that you got tricked, you got fooled. If you were a panicking like me, you were proven wrong today.
Just add to what the secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here.
I failed!
You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect.
That's right. Clearly I was a fool for believing what the White House was saying. I mean, this was all part of a 4D chess strategy. This is also said by Peter Navarro, who also kind of said this is one of the greatest days economically for America.
This is one of the greatest days in American economic history we have had. I think we're going to call it the art of the reciprocal trade deal. And I'll tell you, all the nervous Nellies on Wall Street who try to undermine us consistently underestimate the power of the president to negotiate.
That's right, you nervous Nellies. You should have been listening to the Truth Social. You should have been buying the dip like your president told you to. Now, ultimately, was this some great plan? Well, somebody asked the president, you know, basically, was this part of the art of the deal? Why did you ultimately remove the tariffs? Here's what the president said.
A few hours later, there was a pause put in on the tariffs. Can you walk us through your thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause?
Well, I thought that people were...
Well, they weren't being cool. They were trading on treasury yields. They weren't being cool.
Jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions.
Now, wait a minute. That sounds a little different. That doesn't sound like the art of the deal. That sounds like you remove them because everyone was afraid, which is true. And that's a fine reason to remove them, but that's not the same reason as art of the deal, 10,000 IQ play. Anyway, the whole thing is bizarre, but I really wanted just to flag this weird era we are in where the president can front run his own announcements, like economically. If you could have paid for this as a group chat, you would. Like, dude, this private, imagine you had a private insight into what's going to happen in the future. Just the level of corruption is unreal. Now, some people say, well, you know, he gave it to everyone. So, you know, isn't that fine, I guess? And I can see your point, but the problem is nobody knew to take this seriously except for a few people. Unusual Whales notes that I think people knew of the tariff pause and traded it beforehand. You can see before Trump posted buy on Truth Social, traders opened QQQ and SPY calls right before the news. Someone opened SPY calls expiring today. Those calls are up 2,100% in the hour. So clearly some traders knew even before, and they opened up some calls before even the buy the, you know, basically buy the dip tweet from the president. At the same time, it is sort of also the perfect cover. Like if he says 3 hours before buy, no one knows what that means. It's kind of cryptic. And if you do have insider knowledge, you can just do it, buy a bunch, and then later you go, oh, I was just following, I just believed so much in the public, you know, Truth Social thing. It's really the perfect plausible deniability. There's no way of proving that you didn't see that and just do it. And for everyone else, you can say, well, you had the same access to the same information. Yeah, well, some people knew that the president was about to drop the tariffs. Some people didn't. If those people who knew traded on that information and then later say, oh, no, I just followed the public advice, how can you prove otherwise? That's the problem with making statements like this. It is an inherent conflict of interest because...
The only reason why I said that this is liberal, like the only reason why I said my most liberal take on this is that it was like pre-designed to offer plausible deniability to insider trading. The only reason why I say that's a liberal take is because the liberal in me still has this assumption that the SEC would prosecute this sort of thing. Like that they still have some semblance of regulatory power. It does not.
It can lay cover fire for people who were doing corrupt things, and there's just sort of no way of proving one way or the other. It's weird. And it makes me worry that we're entering a time where basically the insider edge is trying to speculate what the president means about the tweets to buy the dip on the market. It's like, it's actually so weird to be having presidential stock advice. That's kind of, it's so crazy. But yeah, weird times we live in. I just thought I'd cover this since it's one of the most economically impactful news of our year and preceded by a front-run tweet.
There's people getting rich off this graph.
USA checks are no longer clearing for Donald McDonald Harris, and he's going brazy mode. He made a video called Who Gets Rich Off the Poor? Donald McDonald Harris is either moving in a different direction for the new CIA, where they're woke and preach the gospel of the working class, or USA checks have been bouncing too hard, and now he stopped bouncing on America's penis. Donald McDonald's socialism arc. Okay, I'm obviously memeing. We'll see what he says. I suspect that there's still stuff in here that I will disagree with.
What we're looking at here is the number of Americans that don't make enough money for basic survival. So like a family of 4, 2 parents, 2 kids, living off of $31,000 a year or less. That's considered poverty in the United States, and there's millions of people who live with that kind of income. The US government spends about $1 trillion every year helping these people meet their basic needs. In recent decades, a lot of that money has been flowing through a middleman, private corporations who are supposed to be more efficient in administering this money.
So welfare is big business, and of course that's the irony of this whole thing, that there's so much money to be made from poverty.
Okay, what is happening? What the hell is going on? I'm scared. I'm scared. Why is he talking about this? I'm scared, chat.
Now, this is not easy stuff to understand. We're talking about government welfare programs and bureaucracy. Sometimes they're intentionally hard to understand, and these corporations don't.
If the Chi-Coms gave this man money before they gave me money, I swear to God, I'll do a Alex Jones pivot, by the way. I'm being so for real. Do you understand me? You will hear anti-Chinese propaganda like you've never heard before out of sheer envy. I have been your most loyal servant for almost a decade. If you were to take me off the list because you've gotten the propaganda for free and instead fund and funnel money into the likes of former CIA agents like Donald McDonald, I swear to God, I'll drop this whole thing. I'll forget about Chinese century of prosperity overnight. You understand me?
Really want to be known by anyone. But if you start to dig, which we've been doing, and you look deep enough into this, you start to see what all of this actually looks like, who's actually getting rich, what the incentives are within this system, where the loopholes are, and whether or not this is actually benefiting the people that it's designed to benefit. So in this video, I'm going to show you who gets rich off the poor, and I'm just going to do a few case studies that demonstrate how this works. I'll be making a list of examples here, going from what I see as the least egregious abuse of this system to the most. I am bracing myself to get sued or intimidated by the companies that I'm...
What? Okay, dude, chill. I don't think they're going to come after you, big dog. Yeah, China be like, why buy the cow if the cow gives the milk for free?
Calling out in this video because that's how a lot of these powerful shadowy companies work. So as always, every assertion in this video is rigorously fact-checked and in my sources. Lawyers, go check that first before you send me your cease and desist order. Thank you. And with that, let's look at who gets rich off the poor. Let's go back to this graph one last time and just...
Bro, that's amazing. What is it in the minds of people? Unless you're just LARPing, what is in the minds of people that, like, when they hear a guy finally say, like, you know, capitalism's kind of fucked up. Like, it's got to be a meme, right? Like, there's no way this guy's being for real. Like, Johnny Harris is a capitalist, dude. How the fuck is it that when he goes, hey, man, there's a lot of private enterprise here that takes advantage of the welfare state, effectively working as a middleman and underserving the already underserved working poor, and motherfuckers immediately be like, oh, Air Max. There's an element of truth to this. No, there isn't an element of truth to it. What the fuck are you talking about? This guy was literally trolling. You're stupid. You're so stupid that you fell for a guy who was being facetious. You admitted that your moral system is so broken fundamentally that a guy who is literally fibbing, okay, is actually there's a hidden kernel of truth in that. No, there isn't.
zoom back to the 1950s, where you can see that the poverty rate was double what it is today. It's like 22%. This was really bad, and it led to the president at the time declaring war.
And this administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America. We shall not rest until that war is won.
So, A War on Poverty by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. This is what that war looked like. This big line. This is social spending as a share of GDP. You can see this is where he gives this speech right here, this flat line. Social spending just skyrockets right after. The government spends tons of money for this war on poverty. That money goes towards programs like Medicare and Medicaid, food stamps, public education, which is why you see...
Bro, I swear to God, since World War II, America lost every war, dude. War on poverty, war on drugs, Vietnam, Korea, Afghanistan. What war have we fucking won, dude? Holy shit. I'm thinking about it. It's like Grenada. We're over here talking about invading Greenland, dude. It's crazy. The last time we won a war, we got fucking straight hard carried by the USSR. I guess the Cold War. That's the one long war of attrition. Don, look at Asian Jito. Does that mean small head? They would never do that. Xi Jinping would never say that, especially because he has been rewarded handsomely with such a large head. And I think that's bullshit. He would never say that to me.
See this big dip from 22% all the way down to 12, 13%. And for a time, all this spending worked. Poverty declined 30% in 5 years. But eventually progress slowed and the government kept spending and people got tired of it. The economy wasn't doing well and people were tired of subsidizing these welfare programs. And that's where this guy comes in.
My friends, some years ago, the federal government declared war on poverty, and poverty won.
This is where things start to get a little bit murky, so we needed help. We got it from Ann Kim, who is an expert who literally wrote the book on this history and the modern day poverty economy, and sat down with us to talk through this history and how it works today.
Remember during the 1980s, we had this, well, no, you don't remember the 1980s. Well, during the 1980s, there was really this mythologization, if that's a word, of the CEO. At the same time, the government spending was ballooning. Economic times were not that great. So Americans were not feeling particularly generous about funding social services programs. And so the CEOs were really kind of held up on a pedestal as the ones who are going to make government just as efficient as they made their own companies.
Poverty is a big business here in the United States, and the government is making decisions right now that will affect millions of people. And yet, what I've been finding is it's hard to keep up on all of this, how this stuff is being reported, and what is trustworthy and factual.
Let me guess, ground news will help you keep track of all of this, right? Oh, wow. I'm so surprised. I'm going to show you his code.
I view. Ground News is completely subscriber funded, doesn't rely on corporate influences to decide what you see. And if you want to join the platform, you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which has all of these features I talked about today. You get 40% off if you use my link or scan the QR code. ground.news/Johnny Harris is the link. It comes out to be like $5 a month for this, which to me is an affordable price to be better informed and to have a more critical view of the news you're consuming. So sign up now, ground.news/Johnny Harris. Thanks Ground News for sponsoring today's video and for existing. Okay, back to our list of who gets rich off the poor. So it's the 1980s. Reagan wants to rein in all of this spending. He's also afraid that Americans are becoming too reliant on the welfare system. So he kicks off a bunch of changes that over time would lead to a fundamental shift in delivering income support to low-income populations.
They wanted to privatize Medicaid, Medicare, prisons, air traffic control.
This privatization of government spending started under Reagan, but it continued into the future administrations, especially under Bill Clinton, who helped expand it.
Oh, yeah.
And the fundamental shift looks like this. We're going to be using a graphic like this, not only for right now, but for the future cases of how this works today. Taxpayers give money to the government. The government used to give money to citizens in need directly. But after these reforms, the money would start to be distributed to the states. The states states would then hire for-profit companies to do the complicated work of distributing this money to eligible people in need. They would be responsible for making sure that no one's abusing the system, determining who's eligible and who's not. And the thinking here was that the government is much less efficient than private companies. And that is true in most cases. And that if we apply business and the free market and profit motives to welfare, that the for-profit companies would make this more efficient, less government spending, less waste, and less over-reliance on the welfare system. And the big part of all of this is that there would be more requirement for people to be looking for a job or be working in order to qualify for benefits. And who would verify that applicants are actually working? These for-profit companies. And so this is how our welfare system works today, in a very kind of American way. It is administered by private companies that you've never heard about, who are given lots of money from the government to dole it out to people in need.
So Reagan started this privatization train. And it was really President Bill Clinton who not only hopped on board that train, but got it accelerating to its destination, which was total privatization of a lot of social services in America.
Okay, so that's the context here. It's been 45 years since this big experiment began of privatizing our welfare system. And I've always wondered, like, did this work? So that's sort of been the curiosity at the heart of this story. Is government more efficient? Are we saving money? Is this helping vulnerable populations in a more efficient way? The answer is, in some cases, yes. Like, there have been positive outcomes of outsourcing to contractors within the welfare system and public spending. A good example of that is food stamps that used to come in these paper coupons, but now are delivered electronically on a debit card. This is more.
The government could do that. There is literally no need for that to be handled privately. The government could do that. Every single thing that people say, oh, in this private-public partnership, privatization actually was truly beneficial. No, you're just paying an expensive middleman who year over year is going to increase the prices and greatly expand the amount of money spent on social welfare while still offering the same, if not a diminished level of social welfare. It is the exact same principle behind private healthcare in this country. You look at the cost of healthcare expanding year over year. You look at Medicaid and Medicare expanding. The numbers are fucking insane. You're like, oh my God, we're spending so much money on this. It's like, yeah, the reason why we're spending so much money on this is because we're still going back to private insurance as a middle manager that's driving up the cost because they have no fucking interest in lowering the costs across the board. As a matter of fact, it's literally beneficial for private healthcare in certain circumstances to increase the cost. It is an unnecessary middleman that does not need to exist, that quite literally works to explode the cost of all of these services that would be infinitely more efficient if handled by the government. America and the private-public partnership in the United States of America is one of the biggest nuisances. It truly contributes to our GDP skyrocketing. It really does. It is one of the major reasons why our GDP is as vast as it is, as large as it is. Having said that, however, the services at the end state on the client side are still dog shit. So we spend more than everybody else and we get worse or even less money, less monetary help, or less services, a diminished service at the end on the client side in comparison to other places. All that does is create an economy around expensive middlemen that should not even fucking exist. Oh, it is in every aspect of our lives. I despise it. Genuine question, why do you not think Ronald Reagan is the worst president of all time? I do. What are you talking about? Ronald Reagan is the worst American president, I would say, even though there's a long list of evil demons, including slave owners. I think Ronald Reagan's impact on America and the globe as a whole is tough to beat. It's him and George W. Bush that have done untold amounts of pain to the entirety of the planet. Reagan himself was a product of his era, of course, simply just an actor working alongside the international vision of neoliberalism.
secure, it's more efficient. It ensures that people use these for food. There are a lot of instances where private companies have made government spending more efficient, but the purpose of this video is to shine a light on the many instances where private companies have gotten really rich off of this system in a way that has not benefited the most vulnerable and needy people in our country.
I don't know. It might be George W. Bush's administration that might be the worst. But I think Ronald Reagan still set the stage for George W. Bush. And I guess Carter set the stage for Reagan, but God, every president is so bad. It's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to point the fingers at, like, especially in contemporary administrations, like, it's hard to point the finger at, like, one guy. Who's the best president? FDR. And even he did a whole bunch of awful shit. Cutting out black people from the New Deal, Japanese internment camps. But it's not even close. In a field of monstrous administrations, FDR stands alone. Even with all of the negative impacts of his, even with all the negative consequences, Abe Lincoln was pretty good too, even though he also had, again, a bunch of issues. What about Lincoln? Yeah, Abe Lincoln was pretty solid. But I still think that, the abolition of slavery was more of an inevitability than even the New Deal was, or even which side we landed on World War II. It's hard to figure out. It's hard to figure out which would be, I mean, I think Abe Lincoln is more consequential with that, but I don't know. We need a tier list, maybe. Abraham Lincoln said he didn't care about slavery one way or another. He would go with whatever would give him the most clout. Fuck him. Okay, calm down, dude. All right, let's keep going.
Country, the poor, the elderly, children in need, the disabled. So finally, the reason you clicked on this video, let's draw up this list of who gets rich off the poor. And for that, I'm gonna need to look at all these papers, so we need more space. Let's go to the big table. Okay, so the first one on our list is slightly adjacent to the privatization of welfare, but it follows the same incentives and dynamics. And it has to do with taxes. One of the ways that the government subsidizes the lives of lower income people is through a tax credit. So when you file your tax...
Okay, speaking of Abe Lincoln, one last thing I want to mention is that it is very funny that Republicans will talk about how, like, the Democrats were, the Dixiecrats, or Abe Lincoln was a Republican, whatever the fuck, right? And it's so funny because, like, in the time of Abe Lincoln, the Republican Party's credo literally featured the abolition of chattel slavery in the South and wage slavery in the North. It was the closest any major party has ever been to Marxism in American history. That was the Republican Party. Think about that. Like, this is a part of American history that's often not mentioned. Not only was Karl Marx a major glazer of old Abe and Abraham, he was a marabou himself. He wrote letters. Abe never responded as far as we know. I don't think there's any information on whether he ever responded to Karl Marx or not. But Abe Lincoln, gay, maybe bisexual. We don't know. But the Republican Party's official, the original credo of the Republican Party was to engage in the abolition of chattel slavery in the South and wage slavery in the North. That's real. The real red party. Red with the spirit of capitalism. Or fuck, I couldn't even say it right. Red with the spirit of communism. In pre-communist, in a pre-communist society. I can't even get myself to hypothetically say the Republicans are red for... I was about to say capitalism again. Oh my God.
Taxes, you show that you've been working, you've made money, but you didn't make that much money, and therefore you qualify for an earned income tax credit. If you have kids, it goes up and it kind of maxes out at around $7,000. This is a very simple thing. In a lot of countries, you like check a box and you get this refund or this subsidy to your life. But in the United States, it looks like this. This is a 45-page instruction manual about all the specifics on the earned income credit, something that should be so simple and that is a key way of helping lower income people live their lives. The tax code here in the United States is deathly complicated, intentionally designed to be so to make certain companies rich. And this is one way that works. I have a lot of feelings about this. I made a whole video on the New York Times about this very thing, but I didn't focus on this aspect of it. Because it's so complicated,
Yeah, that's by design. As Johnny also knows, that is literally by design. And sometimes they'll make it even more complicated, also by design. where they'll just make it inaccessible. Like they'll close up the pathways where you could receive potentially receive this aid. Like during COVID, when the state of Florida deliberately made their website unusable.
Low-income people who qualify for this credit don't want to fill it out themselves, and so they go to a tax preparer. Enter this guy. Well, not this guy specifically, but a guy like this, representing a company like this, Liberty Tax.
Also, they make money. I forgot. This is opportunity for bounty. More of that private-public partnership that the American government absolutely loves. A middleman that will solve the inefficiencies that we have directly created. Sometimes the middleman itself petitions the government, lobbies the government to create these inefficiencies so they can fill that void and make money.
Is one of many tax preparation companies that advertise to low-income people to come in so that they can prepare their taxes and get them in on the earned income tax credit. But we now know they do so using some pretty shady means. There's a lawsuit. Lawsuit. District of Columbia versus Liberty Tax Service. Liberty Tax was recently sued for luring low-income people by saying that they will prepare their taxes for them, only to deceive these customers by secretly skimming extra money off the top of their tax refund, which remember includes the earned income tax credit that is meant to subsidize their lives. Liberty Tax also gives out loans to people, saying that they can pay them back once they get their tax refund.
But what that really has done is create a market for high-interest fast cash products like refund anticipation loans or refund anticipation checks, which are basically just payday loans that are secured by the refund. And so this predatory industry has grown to take advantage of the complexity of an incredibly important benefit that a lot of poor people count on every year.
These loans would often come with high interest rates and unexpected fees. In fact, the pricing in all of this has been kind of a black box, allowing Liberty Tax to take advantage of low-income Americans trying to get in on the benefit that they are entitled to because of this tax credit. Okay, and this is where I have to come clean. I worked for this company. Not for very long, and not in any high position. I was one of these Statue of Liberty guys. One winter, I was home from university waiting for a security clearance for an internship at NATO, and I needed money. And so I found this job, being the Statue of Liberty, holding this sign. I didn't know what the sign said, okay? But it probably said something like, "Need money today? Apply for a $500 to $6,250 easy advance." In other words, I was probably a part of luring desperate people in to get a bad loan or to have their tax refund skimmed by this corporation. I had no idea, and I'm sorry. Liberty is just one of many corporations who has gotten in on these schemes, targeting low-income people to try to get in on their tax credits. And to me, this is actually a failure of our tax system. For this segment of the population, this should be a very easy thing like it is in every other country. A box on a free government website that you can fill out in 5 minutes. But instead, we've got a privatized corporate middleman who is making all of this money off the poor. Okay, number 2, housing. So here in the US, instead of building big public housing complexes like they do in some countries and like we used to do, the privatized version of the American government gives vouchers to low-income people and allows them to go choose a house, and the government will basically pay for a portion of their rent. This is called Section 8 housing. And there are landlords that specialize in renting to Section 8 tenants, getting this government subsidy voucher that goes to pay for the rent. But what you find is that some of these landlords jack up their prices because they know the government will pay for it. Like here in DC, an apartment that should cost $1,600 a month, the landlord might charge almost $1,000 more, like $2,500 a month, well above the market price, knowing that the government, who has poor oversight over this program, won't pick up on this and will...
Yeah, y'all heard that? He had a internship at NATO. I didn't miss that. I know he had an internship at NATO. That's why I say he's CIA. You guys got a little insight into how I play with Kaya normally. Why are Mormons always getting tricked into being evil? That's so funny. Beat her ass like that.
Subsidize that inflated price.
Don't you use minoxidil? Is it not poisonous for your dog? No, I feed her minoxidil every day. It's fine. She likes it. She likes the taste of it. Yeah, dude. I put it in my head. And then I also not only do I put it on my head, but I also wash my hands after applying it because I know it is poisonous for my dog. Also, I think her being 100 pounds also helps in this regard as well. But I've never had her be anywhere near the minoxidil. Are you stupid? She's my daughter and she's precious. It's so funny when people try to test me on my dog training and my dog welfare when like she is the best trained dog you've ever seen. Why would your assumption be that I would ever put her life at risk? The pill is finasteride. Minoxidil is just Rogaine, chatters. What if your dog starts balding? I will have to give her minoxidil then. I'm kidding.
Now, I'm not just making this up. Those are real numbers from an investigation here in DC by the Washington Post, who found that the DC government is overpaying thousands of apartments to the tune of $1 million every month here in Little DC. But this is happening all over the country, enriching landlords while depleting the assisted housing fund, all while distorting the market. Like, this is not free market. This is a totally distorted thing. Number 3 on our list is corporate middlemen, which is kind of a big section. I'll try to work through it fairly concisely, but it's kind of the biggest one here. This is where a lot of people get really rich off the poor. Remember from our history section just a few moments ago that Ronald Reagan shook up the welfare system by, instead of giving
Ronald McDonald Reagan
money directly to people in need, instead giving it to the states, who would then give it to a corporate middleman who would then distribute it. And that corporate middleman also had to kind of determine the eligibility of people, making sure they're working or they're looking for a job. And all of that is a lot of work, and these corporations were the ones to be doing it.
So these are the folks who are getting government contracts to act as government in running welfare programs. They're basically agents of the government. They're mercenaries for the public sector. They're making huge decisions that benefit the everyday lives of low-income people. One of these companies, for instance, was a company called Maximus, which is one of the largest welfare services providers today. They had revenues of about $88 million in 1995, and just a few years later, their revenues were already up to $500 million. And today,
just shave your head. There's a little unknown toxic side effect of Rogaine. It destroys joints and cartilage. And I know you know this. Wait, what? Is there? I didn't know that. And no, I'm not going to fucking shave my head, dude. What are you talking about?
they're a $4.9 billion business.
Now, this was exactly the point for Reagan and his reformers. These corporate middlemen were supposed to be much more efficient in administering this government money. And indeed, they are for-profit companies and they operate much more efficiently than the government itself, cutting costs and looking for ways to do things more efficiently. But let's remember, this is not like a normal corporation like McDonald's that is selling a product to a customer that can go somewhere else. Let's see what happens. A few years ago, Maximus took...
I hope he's going to say efficiency in this process just means diminished services, right? Like efficiency for McDonald's, you know, one can make the argument is good or something. I don't know. I'm not in favor of efficiency in private corporations either, because in many circumstances, efficiency simply means increasing productivity and displacing the pre-existing labor force and keeping prices relatively low. But in terms of efficiency in a private public sector arrangement, that literally means diminished services, finding ways to not pay people, and also maximizing the pay that you're getting from the government.
Took over Tennessee's health insurance program, state-run health insurance program. It's called Medicaid. And what you saw is that many children and elderly people very quickly were booted out of the program. They were found ineligible. There was a 23% increase.
Say goodbye to streaming. If you take DHT blockers, no one will watch you. DHT blockers will ruin your energy levels and ruin your streaming career. I don't know if you know this, but since I started taking DHT blockers approximately 6 years ago, I went from 300 viewers to 30,000. So I think the exact opposite has happened.
In the number of uninsured children in the state.
What is going on, dude? What the fuck's happening in the chat? I've been pretty open about taking minoxidil and finasteride for literally 6+ years. Are you guys just trying to stun lock me or some shit?
That's more than any other state at the time, 2018. It took me a while to get my head around this. Like, why would a for-profit company want to kick children and old people off of the state health insurance program? I'll explain in just a sec, but let's look at one more example. In 2016, Maximus took over the Medicaid program in Kansas. And soon thereafter, applicants started to see huge delays in their applications. Backlogs started to build up, which, remember what we're talking about here. This isn't abstract. This is vulnerable people, in this case, mostly elderly people, not being able to access their basic health needs for weeks and sometimes months because their application was pending for a very long time, meaning Maximus was working on it, but presumably very slowly. And that's because children and low-income people and elderly people are not Maximus's customer. They do not have an incentive to serve those people, partly because those people can't go anywhere else. Those people think that they're interacting with the government. They don't know who Maximus is. And mostly because their main job is to get more government contracts and then to cut costs so that they can capture as much of that government contract as profit. So in this case, what that means is cutting staff, making it as cheap as possible to process these applications. This answers my question about why a company like Maximus would want to get people off the rolls, to deem them ineligible for these benefits. Because it's cheaper for them. They are motivated to find people who do not qualify and to pare down their list so they have fewer people to work on, which is less cost for them. So yes, there is cost cutting and efficiency that's happening here, but it happens to be at the expense of vulnerable, needy people who the government is trying to give money to. Now, actually, I don't blame Maximus very much for this. I don't think they're bad people. I think they provide a very useful service in most cases. We should expect a corporation to behave like this. The definition of a for-profit corporation is someone who does everything in their...
Wait a minute. No. Hold up. Let him cook. Wait. Hold up. Is he refusing to ascribe a moral imperative and simply saying that this is how capitalism is, only helping you arrive at the conclusion that it is an immoral system in and of itself? Because that is, welcome back, Karl Marx, you know? It's not like he's saying that, this companies are not moral actors. They simply operate at the behest of the profit incentive. It is the incentives within the system that has been normalized that is the issue here. Just saying.
Their power to make money for their company. That is their job. So without proper oversight and competition and regulation and performance review, these corporations should be...
Oh my God. Oh, damn. My bad. It's not the private-public partnership that is at fault here. It's simply that the government hasn't regulated it appropriately. Oh, man. If only there was more regulation from the government, and then there would be more abundance.
Expected to minimum...
Yeah. He turned it around and said, real capitalism hasn't been tried yet. I mean, he's not like a fucking libertarian or whatever. I think he's more so a social democrat. I love how, Dodge is reversing where Reagan, I love how
minimize the resources they have to put into processing applications and administering benefits.
Yeah, and what we need is a public-private partner who can oversee the profits for the middlemen. What we need is more middlemen. That's right. Instead of making the government do this service, as it does virtually everywhere. Sorry. I apologize. Stop sniffing. Stop sniffing. You're gross. Yeah. Anyway, instead of having the government seize control over these initiatives as it has in virtually every other competent and comparable OECD nation, we need another middleman, maybe even a private one that is just like a regulatory agency that regulates the regulators, I think. And then we can hire more people. And then more CEOs can make money that way. That'll fix it.
Another point of fairness here. If you look at the financials of Maximus, they're not some crazy profitable company. Yes, they bring in billions of dollars. They've captured a huge amount of this government services market. Their gross profit margin is 20%, which seems like a lot. But if you actually look at their net profit margin, which is kind of their more typical profit margin, it's like 3%.
Then, okay, so is private healthcare. Private healthcare margins are so low. Private healthcare margins are so low. Why is there a government services industry? Why isn't it just the government? If it's so goddamn low, if the net profit margin is around 3% and that's so low, so low, then fucking abolish it. That's my argument. Like, if you are a capitalist, and this is where I think the capitalist dogma shelters you from recognizing the truth. It stunts your imagination, where you have the fucking horse blinders on, and no matter how much you can dream of a beautiful future, if you're still locked into the dogmatic ways of thinking within the structures of capitalism, you ultimately still have this underlying attitude that corporations are also magnanimously doing things. Even after you describe that this is just how corporations are. Corporations are supposed to work for profit. That's what for-profit corporations do, which is why we need more regulation on top of this. Okay, how about no regulation in that field? That is a necessity because it's run by the government.
That's a pretty poor performance for a company. They're not insanely profitable. The CEO did make $7.3 million last year in full compensation, and they did spend over $1 million in lobbying and funding elections. My point here is corporate middlemen who administer welfare are not robber barons, and they're not running some corrupt scheme, but they are for-profit corporations who will cut costs where they can. And if they're not held accountable for doing that, the people who suffer are the people who are already vulnerable and needy in our country, which is what all these programs are meant to help.
Because they're one of only a handful of companies that are in this business, you can get away with a lot of behaviors that may not fly in a more competitive marketplace.
I remember interacting with these companies. I didn't know I was interacting with them until I started reporting the story, but when my son was like 1.5, he was diagnosed with autism, and we started to look around for services, realized our insurance didn't cover anything, so we went to Medicaid.
Dude, this is why we watch Donald McDonald, Mr. CIA Harris, okay? The reason why we watch him is because we disagree with him, chatters. That's the whole point.
And we qualified. And my wife spent hours and hours on the phone with what I now know was a corporate middleman trying to work through these applications and processes. And it was mind-numbing.
Yeah, Johnny is the insight into the liberal mind, as is Asman the mind of the conservative. We get to understand what conservatives are saying, doing, and thinking, what motivates them when we look at the Asmongold chat and Asmongold, just as it's important to understand the fascinating mind of a liberal. Johnny Harris gives us a fair insight.
Complicated and difficult, and the wait times were so long, and the paperwork and the hoops that we had to jump through. And I remember feeling a lot of anger at the inefficiency of the government. The government has no incentive to perform because we're not their customer. What I realize now is that I was dealing with a corporation. I was not the customer. Was not the customer. My son, Henry, who needed services, was not the customer. And in fact, complicated forms and more wait times and process is actually more business for these corporate middlemen. They have an incentive to sell more paperwork to all of us. To me, that is a distortion of what Ronald Reagan dreamt about, of corporations swooping in and making our government more efficient. Okay, that's corporate middlemen. Let's move on to number 4. Medicaid dentists. Now, I've had some positive experiences with Medicaid. When I was a freshly married, in my young 20s university student with no insurance, and we had our first baby, I got hit with a $10,000 bill from the hospital and freaked out and went to the billing department at the hospital, and they told me about this magical thing called Medicaid for someone like me who was very low income at the time. And lucky for me, whoever the benefits contractor in Utah was handled it very well, and it really saved my bacon. But if you look at all sides of Medicaid, you start to see entire industries that exist to take advantage of the Medicaid system. A good example of this is dentistry.
It's created an enormous business opportunity for some dentists who see that they can make a living treating exclusively Medicaid patients.
Unlike regular private insurance, Medicaid doesn't reimburse very much for dental procedures. So because of that, a lot of dentists don't take Medicaid as an insurance. And on the other side, there are some dentists that only take Medicaid. They specialize in appealing to patients who qualify for Medicaid, getting them in, and doing as many procedures as possible to get in on those Medicaid benefits. And once again, if we're talking rational corporate behavior and incentives, these offices will often target lower income or disabled or elderly patients who are less likely to advocate for themselves and against medically unnecessary procedures.
So inevitably what's happened over time is that this market has turned into a very exploitative one, where dentists have been prosecuted for charging for procedures that didn't exist or procedures that were completely unnecessary. For instance, there was a dentist in North Carolina who was prosecuted for having performed 17 root canals on a 3-year-old toddler.
Oh yeah, this is insane.
And it's not just one bad apple in North Carolina. This is a lawsuit where the US government settled with a company called Cool.
Was it? I think this literally was the company that, was it TrueAnon, or I think I remember either TrueAnon or Chapo talking about this company and what they did.
Smiles. And they are
There's like a weird, there's a company in Florida that has like a weird connection to people connected to Matt Gaetz. So I do think that it was TrueAnon that talked about this. Yeah, the 17 root canals on a baby is like something that I recall hearing.
A Medicaid-specific dental franchise who had to pay close to $24 million because an investigation found that they were performing dental operations that were not medically necessary. They were taking advantage of poor patients in order to get more money from Medicaid. According to the lawsuit, they performed tooth extractions, gave out stainless steel crowns, did root canals on babies that did not need them. Like, there are multiple things really wrong with this. Obviously, exploiting a government system to deplete the Medicaid fund is one aspect, but performing like dental surgery.
My wife is a dentist, and this is completely misconstruing the truth, brother. He is literally talking about like things that have already been prosecuted in a court of law. He didn't make that up. Unless you're saying the justice system is unfairly maligning big, brave Medicaid dentists that do unnecessary dental work in an effort to farm Medicaid payments. This isn't to say every dentist operates like this. No, he's not saying all Medicaid dentists do this. The fuck?
Surgeries on people, root canals on babies for money is a level of greed.
Unless your wife got prosecuted, in which
corporate
case
exploitation that I cannot really get my head around. But again, in a world where companies will maximize profits, this is to be expected if the incentive structure is set up that way. Let's get to number 5, which is similar to the dental clinics, but it has to do with kidneys. Here in the US, lower income people are disproportionately plagued with kidney failure, a disease where your kidneys fail and your blood can't be cleaned by your kidneys, so you need a machine called a dialysis machine to clean your blood for you. Luckily, since the 70s, the United States now heavily subsidizes people who need dialysis for their...
This was ironically Richard Nixon, wasn't it? Am I crazy? Am I misremembering? Yeah, Richard Nixon signed Social Security amendments in 1972, which created the end-stage renal disease. Nixon signed the bill that was experimental at the time to cover all medical expenses for anyone diagnosed with kidney failure. Richard Nixon, Maoist third worldist, opened up China to the world. Remember that. Okay? EPA kidney dialysis machines for all. Opening up China to the world. Just saying. These are important things to remember when talking about the often misunderstood Nixon regime.
Their kidneys. And dialysis is meant to be a temporary intervention while you wait for a kidney transplant. There's always a long waiting list for a kidney transplant, so you're on dialysis until you can get a transplant, which increases your chances of living. It is a wonderful thing that the government subsidizes this because it saves a lot of lives. But inevitably, here comes the exploitation.
Overnight, it instantly created an industry opportunity to offer dialysis.
Disadvantaged people need more dental work than those who can afford to go every 6 months. Disabled people have more complex dental cases. Dentists should be able to make a living off of Medicaid exclusive work. We need more dentists and access to dental care. Fuck this guy. I think you guys are misunderstanding the point that he's making. I don't think he's talking about every dentist, every Medicaid dentist. Politics is dead. There's no left or right, only rich or poor.
Dialysis, because now the government was going to pay for it.
One of these companies is called DaVita. I think they're the largest dialysis center company in the United States. And because of this set of incentives, we can start to piece together how they would behave.
And the thing again about dialysis is, like Medicaid dentistry, it's a volume business. The government pays dialysis centers per treatment, and last year was about $380 per treatment. So it is unfortunately in the interest of dialysis companies that run dialysis centers to keep those machines occupied as many hours of the day as they can, to cycle through as many patients as they can, because an empty dialysis machine is $380 that they're not making.
Okay, so a company making sure that their machines are being used at full capacity is actually, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. That is a company using its resources efficiently, administering a life-saving treatment. But that's kind of just the beginning. What you see in these for-profit dialysis centers is less staff to help with the treatment, and you see higher death rates. And this is where it becomes so clear where the failure is. You see 17% fewer referrals for kidney transplant, meaning these people who are on a temporary dialysis intervention, who are supposed to be waiting for a kidney transplant, are kept on the machines longer because a for-profit company makes money the longer they are in the chair. So why would they refer them to get a kidney transplant when they make more money keeping them on the dialysis treatment? If someone gets a transplant, that is a lost customer.
Unfortunately, it's an option that's being denied a lot of people because it's in the financial interest of dialysis centers to keep someone in dialysis rather than, quote, losing them to transplant.
Now, DaVita has paid like $1 billion in settlements and for some of this behavior, including $350 million they had to pay after being sued by the US government for paying doctors to go out to recruit people to come to their dialysis centers so that they could corner the market in certain areas. They had to pay another $450 million because they were found billing the government for medicine that they had received and just thrown out, and charged the government anyway so that they could get reimbursed. All of this, once again, further draining the money that is allocated by our government to help people in need. And finally, number 6, the last on our list, the one I'm deeming the most egregious because it has to do with children. And not just any children, the most vulnerable children in our society. Specifically children who have been removed from their family because of abuse, abandonment, or death. Foster children. If a foster child loses a parent or is physically or mentally disabled, the federal government entitles them to around $700 a month to subsidize their lives. This is one that goes straight from the federal government, from the Social Security Fund, straight to these children, or at least it should. But here comes the corporate middlemen once again. States will often hire corporate middlemen like Maximus, who is in fact a part of this, to look through the databases of foster children to identify which of those children qualify for this benefit, meaning which of these children have a dead parent or are physically or mentally disabled. And then to go through the process of diverting that money.
Whoa. Yeah. Kaya. Oh my God. Kaya, please. You're being real bad right now. I have pomegranate molasses that my dad got from my mom. She dropped the bottle and it broke, and then it started spilling everywhere. And because her car was running, she had to go outside and quickly turn off her car. I cleaned it up in the process, but Kaya was running out to go lick the pomegranate molasses. That's what's going on in the background.
Away from the children and into state coffers. The state says they're doing this to help supplement the foster care program in their state to help boost their budget. But what feels very icky about this to me is that it creates, once again, a business opportunity for a for-profit company who is incentivized to scour these databases looking for children who qualify for this benefit to divert the money away from them and towards the state. And Maximus gets paid a fee to do this. They're incentivized to do this as a service for the state. to look through these databases and look for children who qualify. There's one NPR report from a while back that reports that the corporate middleman Maximus, who we've talked about at length here, and who I will probably get sued by, would get $1,600 per child that they found who qualified for this benefit. Remember, a child whose parents are dead or who has a physical or mental disability who's entitled to around $700 a month to supplement their very difficult life. If Maximus finds that child and diverts that money into state coffers, Maximus gets paid $1,600. That was in Alaska. Oh, but it's still going on. In 2018, Washington State worked with Maximus to get $6.89 million of foster children's money. Wisconsin got $4.13 million from their foster children, thanks again to the services of Maximus. Illinois, $18.7 million from foster children. Illinois didn't work with Maximus in this case, but another similar corporate middleman called Diversified Services Network to do the same thing. None of these companies want to be known or spoken out loud. They just sort of operate as like a proxy for the government. This is what they do.
I saw the Supreme Court 9-0 ruling. Supreme Court says Trump administration must facilitate return of Maryland man mistakenly deported to El Salvador. And no, this is not the Supreme Court going woke, chat. Okay? This is the Supreme Court saying this is our limit, okay? Our limit is when you violate a previous court order and erroneously, without due process, send someone to El Salvador. You cannot turn around and claim as though you have no mechanism of bringing them back, especially because, I mean, this is important. This is important because this is like either a constitutional crisis or the Trump administration takes the L. If the SCOTUS went along with this, this would mean that like the judiciary is gone. There's no power to the judiciary at all, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. What happens if they don't agree to this? This is the interesting part of the story. I don't know. I mean, I feel like last time something similar to this happened, we had a war. Oh, so yeah. We shall see. It does show that Clarence has a limit, which I find fascinating. Cherokee National Supreme Court ruling. Yeah. Basically, I don't know. Maybe I am not up to date on my constitutional law and also Supreme Court history, but I can't think of a time where a constitutional crisis was triggered against the state rather than other states, like against the federal government. A constitutional crisis being triggered against states or a collection of states is one thing. I guess, yeah. Andrew Jackson, well,
every day.
I kind of want to watch this Legal Eagle video. What happens when he ignores court orders? This is precisely the case that may happen.
Damn, this guy's good.